to FEMA and also coordinating with FEMA on a regular basis to get this approved. And I think this is the second of 3, Michael, am I correct about that?
Yes.
So we got one more to go, but we've been doing really well on that. So the cost recovery from FEMA has been good and consistent, so.
Was that cost brought into our deficit, or?
No.
It's capitalized. It's in construction work in progress. So it's on our balance sheet. It's not put into the P&L.
Okay.
Yeah, so things like that will go into capital if they are like physical things, and that's what happened with this, so.
Just on another note, that project was scheduled in 2019, and because of COVID, it got bumped out.
Mhm.
And it actually worked to our benefit because of the flood.
Because of the flood?
Because
Excellent.
of the flood. Because it would have been our whole expense, and now FEMA's
Oh.
paying for it, so.
Excellent.
Oh,
All right.
wonderful.
Yeah, that is kismet,
Something
karma,
went our way.
something like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
every now and then you get that.
You get those, yeah.
Cool. On the manager's report, when I wrote it, we were about 80% increase in budget. It's increased substantially since then. We're on version 7 of the budget that has been occurring since this time, and we're at about 12.5% increase to make this work. We still, I mean, most of this, as you will see, when we talk about the budget, like 80-something% of this is not within our control. 68%, roughly 67, 69% are power costs, and those have gone up substantially this year. And they're going up for everybody. So I don't know if this can be considered good news, but you are the lowest cost utility in the state. You are likely to stay there or be close to there even after a 10% increase or whatever we end up getting, because other utilities have to do the same thing. They're all getting the power costs from the same place. And that is a fundamental thing that we really are not able to change. Labor costs are, so if you considered like overhead stuff, labor costs is about 19% of our total costs. I think that's very reasonable. I think you're doing well with that. Obviously, that will change a bit with the union and with other stuff. And we built that into next year's budget, so Michael will talk about that with you all. But the reality is, there's not a lot to move here. There's power costs, labor costs, and then miscellaneous other stuff, which is relatively small. And I'm gonna use this example for the fun of it. So, like, our coffee pods at the office, if you cut that, it's like 3 decimal points and 1 to deal with that. So
Right.
I don't know how you want to treat that. We'll make that all available. We'll talk about it. But the reality is, we got 2 big pieces here. Power costs, which is 2/3 of our costs. Labor costs, which are about 1/3. And we have a bunch of people working on, multiple things. So there's not a lot of overlap on the labor. 11 people to run a utility, 6 outside, 5 inside. I will say from an outsider looking in, you're doing really well on that, but it can be painful as you look toward a 12% rate increase. So we'll talk about that, and you all can consider that. And when we get to the budget, by the way, I want to have an open discussion today. I'm not expecting any action on that at all. If you have questions of more information that you need or want, we'll spend the next month getting that together and come back in December for you with that. But this is a big chunk of like your responsibility and my responsibility, truthfully, in terms of operating this thing. And this is where you need to spend a lot of time and understand it. So I want you to that's why I want to provide 2 months worth of time to do this. I don't think there's anything else on the manager's
Well,
report except for the FEMA stuff that I mentioned.
There is Transco equity call.
Okay, so part of our, thank you, Michael, part of our relationship with Velco is that they pay a certain amount on the proportion of equity we have in their system. And they are making a change. They're doing an equity call, which will affect that. And it's part of the budget, right? It's part
No,
of.
because it's not, it's capitalizable.
Oh, it's capitalizable because it's transmission. So, will that be, I'm sorry, Michael, let
I
me
can
ask.
give you some numbers.
Is that gonna be more of a cost or less of a cost? I guess we'll start.
In cost, it's not gonna be one or the other.
Yeah,
It's cash out the door if we finance it ourselves.
okay.
We can also finance it through VEPSA. The total equity call is $150 million.
Yeah, we don't have to pay that.
Our share of that is $1.8 million.
And that's over a period of how long roughly?
For the life of the Transco.
Yeah, okay.
We get 12.5% return on that equity. So it's a very good investment. What I'm thinking of, and I discussed this with Chris, is using VEPSA to fund everything. They go out and get bonds, they have the debt on their books. We pay that back with some of the dividends. Dividends run. So we don't have any cash out the door. We don't have any kind of, anything on our books other than when we get the dividends, we record the income.
Cool. So one thing about that, no, sorry. It's the sign people. So one thing about that I think is also relevant is that as with any of this stuff, we have to decide how to treat it on our books. And the fact that, remember last month when we were getting the training, one of the criticisms of Ludlow Electric was we didn't have any debt. Great, that's a penalty now to not have any debt. And we may wish to pursue, and Patty thought it was a good argument that I raised, which was, why can't we use the VEPSA debt that we have, the portion of that we're responsible for as our debt? And she thought that would be a good argument. This kind of fits into that too, if we build that into this. But a 12.5% return, not bad these days. So thank you. Cool. So any questions, other questions on the report or things that
I have a question, but
Sure.
it may be, maybe we'll talk about it later. When we submitted a request for a 5% increase or whatever it was, and we got 2
Right.
or 12, we asked for
1.2
12, we
or
got
something.
2 or whatever.
Yeah.
We must have gotten some kind of
We
correspondence
did.
regard. Can you share that with the
Yes,
board?
be happy to do that. We'll give you their order, but in summary, I will say that it was, they felt we had too much cash on
Okay.
hand to warrant an increase, and that was probably the biggest thing, but I'll get you that information. It's part of why, when we talk about the budget assumptions, when we get in here, I'm suggesting that we reduce our cash on hand. Not to the point where we're like having cash flow problems, but to actually just be more responsible about like having this balance, right?
Okay.
So we'll talk about that, but happy to get you their decision.
I would like to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll make a note of that.
Might be handy too if they have the 2010 ones, so you can compare them.
Oh, was there?
There was a rate increase in
In
2000.
2010, I
Okay.
believe I have those, yes.
Okay. So,
What was the ask and what was the,
I don't remember in 2010, but we had a lot more money than we did last year.
interesting.
Right, so it'd be good to
Yeah.
just be
I
able
mean, we
to-
are-
I wonder what the,
I mean, we're
Right.
reducing,
what did we ask? and
we
what
are
did we get?
reducing the money, and as you will see, we have a substantial deficit if we are, well, we'll get into that, but if we did not have cash on hand in such amounts that we do, we'd be in serious trouble. And so the goal is to get the rate to be responsive to the cost. That's what's supposed to happen. I know it's not gonna be popular to have a rate increase, but you'll still be the lowest or among the lowest in the state in terms of utility costs. So we'll get there when we talk about it.
And does the deficit not get looked at as far as the rate increase? Do they not take that into consideration?
They will ultimately, but if you've got the cash on hand to pay that, that's where the problem is. Is
Okay.
they're like, you don't need a rate increase, you can use this $700,000 from your savings or stuff you have on hand.
Okay.
So that's the key, is to get it to a point where you've got cash on hand to be responsible and to make your payments and to have cash flow, but not so much as they feel like you are taking ratepayer money and hoarding it, right? That, I gotta say, that's probably what they think you've been doing, is kind of hoarding ratepayer money and not,
Using
not
it.
using it, right? So.
Okay.
All right, so we'll get the PUC decisions out to you guys. And thank you, Brett, for the 2010
Yeah. I'd like to
scenario.
see those two if we
Okay,
can.
cool. Yeah.
Any other questions for manager? Okay, so moving on to superintendent report, please.
Anybody have any questions? You want me to read it off, or?
No,
No?
well, I don't have to read it tonight.
I like hearing your voice though, so if you want to read it, it's okay.
We started, meter reading actually started on the 20th, not because of Thanksgiving. Monthly checks and substations, 23 dig safe locates. Had one major outage, which we were sitting in training when I had to leave. Tree took out a line on Ponus Road. New service at Singleton Store, a new service for Divided Sky for their fire pumps, and a new service at 765 Route 131. Some tree trimming, Okemo lower loop, upper loop. Started some of the oil changes in the equipment, as we do in the fall. Safety topic was environmental and green power safety, and shop and office maintenance, lawn mowing, and fall cleanup.
When do we start, I heard you do the oil changes, start putting on winter tires and,
We don't usually change winter tires unless we feel that something's, we chain trucks up if we go out. You know, we're going out in crappy conditions.
Yeah.
Pickups, we just try to keep a decent all-season winter,
Okay.
summer tire on them.
When are you doing fall cleanup at my house? I didn't see that on the
Same time
numbers.
probably mine gets done
Yeah.
after the snow.
disappears.
Yeah. It's white. It's all
Yeah,
clean.
that's why it's all clean, exactly. Yeah.
Any questions for Brett? All right, so let's go on to budget discussions, 2025 budget.
Yeah, so I think by introduction, I will say, you've been not keeping up in terms of your rates versus the income versus expenses. You've not been keeping up with that for a while now. What I'll say is that when I saw the audit last year, it was $300,000. It's $700 and something thousand this year, maybe even a little more. There are reasons for that, mostly power cost related. If you look at kind of the first kind of summary page that we offered, we basically have we're expecting like $7.5 million in power costs of the 10,900,000 total costs. So it's a hefty percent. The labor costs are about 2 million of that, about 19%. But a lot of this is not in your control, and what needs to happen, unfortunately, and it's maybe not politically desirable, but at this point, Ludlow needs a rate increase. And it's probably got to be on the order of about 13% to level this. Now, 13% on the kilowatt hour charge that we have is honest. I mean, look, 13% it's significant. It's significant, but it's not something that is going to be really. I mean, it's going to. I'm not going to characterize it. Okay, I'm just going to say that's what needs to happen for this utility to bring in the revenue necessary to support the expenses. And that, there are some assumptions in that built into 2025, which you may or may not agree with. Then we'll talk about those, but that's kind of where things kind of sit. And if you took out like all the administrative costs, you reduced our staff to 0 or something, you would still be, well, since we have 18% of our thing, of our whole budget on labor, and obviously you can't run a utility with nobody, but if you, just for example, if you took everybody out of this, you would only save like 6% off this. So it's very significant in terms of we need to have the people here to do this job effectively. It's actually still a very lean staff, both in the shop and the office. People overlap on their duties. And the reality is that, I think you're doing really well in that area, but the problem is that it's really the power costs that are increasing substantially. There is a union impact that we built into this budget to anticipate finalizing that, and we'll talk about that too. And then you have some decisions to make about what you're comfortable with doing in terms of a 2025 COLA, cost of living increase or not, or providing money for bonuses or not. You've not done that before. So those are things that we're going to talk about in the next month or so. We can start substantially on that today, but I don't want to at all imply that I'm looking for any decisions from you today. This is a bigger thing. I think we talk about it. I think you go home. I think you have a few sleepless nights thinking about it, and then we can come back next month and talk about it more. But my goal is that, we do some refining. We're on version 7 right now, even though you haven't seen other versions. We've been working on this. So, if there are comments from tonight that we need to adjust, we'll do that. and we'll provide another version, and we can certainly do that through the month. Even though you can't discuss it, we can be like moving it forward so that when we get here next month, you feel like you know what's going on, you're in a better place to vote on it. My goal would be that that you all vote on this in the December meeting so we can start January fresh with the new budget. It's my understanding that usually you haven't done that until like March or April, and then it's retroactive. It's always a hassle. It would be nice to actually just set up a system whereby you can do this on a timely manner. And I think I'd be interested in your feedback on this. I mean, I set this up so that we would have a draft budget today, both regular budget and capital budget, and then be able to decide it in December. But if you felt like you needed more time, or this doesn't work, for the future, we could back it up a bit and like start presenting you with budget information in October. Of course, the further back we go, the less accurate it becomes. We don't have the power cost information that ideally, and that's a huge chunk of this, that ideally we'd like to have if we went earlier. We did get it enough to put it in here, into this budget. So with that, I think what I would like to do is, if it's okay with you, is I'll ask Michael to walk you through some of the bigger picture items. He's got it on the screen. Would that be okay? Or
So just, unless everybody else knows and I don't, are we gonna see a draft, is he gonna present a draft budget for this coming year?
yes,
Okay.
he's presenting what you.
And we don't have a hard copy of that.
No, we sent it to you electronically. If you print it out in hard copy.
I
there-
meant to remind you to make copies of everything I gave you.
Oh, thank you.
Because
I didn't.
It's
So,
hard for, it's
I
hard
know,
for me.
I know, and me
Look at a
too.
screen and
Right.
then, and let me just finish.
Yeah.
And without that kind of information, and come back in December and vote on something that I've only seen on a screen,
Correct.
doesn't work for me.
No, fair enough. And
But
I
that's
can
for other
acknowledge that
people.
because I like, although I don't like paper, I like looking at something in
No, I mean, I don't want a
person.
book, but
No,
I've,
no, exactly. So, let's kind of walk through this and understand that, you know, maybe in the next day or so, we can get you hard copies of the
Yeah.
component of this that you would like.
Let's see, is there anyone still here? Because if you forwarded that email, I could go see if Brendan can make a copy or two.
He might
You
still be there.
can't make, I mean, it's hundreds
Because I
of
tried.
pages.
Yeah, you can't
Right.
print it on a.
Right,
I have
there's
this
one,
so I don't know.
there's one thing that you can print off to get a full one page.
and I did do that.
There you
but
go.
it doesn't.
Okay, so, right, so we'll talk about that
Just
and what
type it in.
works and what doesn't work. But the reality is you can't print out all the detail or you'd be, you know,
Because,
overwhelmed.
I mean, maybe what we could do is schedule a brief meeting
For budget
for the, yeah,
purposes.
to discuss the budget.
Sure.
And have the information
Yeah.
that we can look at ahead of time.
Yeah.
And be prepared with
Yeah,
questions.
we can
to-
certainly
to-
do a special
To cut
meeting.
the time out of this.
Happy to do that, and I appreciate the complexity of this and how difficult this is. But it's really, yeah, I think in anything like this, we're starting at the highest level and working our way down through the detail that you feel like you're to a level where you're comfortable with it, right? And I don't know where that is right now. I want to feel that out with you, and I want to provide that for you. So, if we need a special meeting, you know, we can do that. But I think in this presentation, what you're gonna see is key things, and you can say, okay, I want copies of these 4 tabs, and I'm not worried about the detail behind it, right? So, think about that as we look at this, all right? And again, no decisions today, and what I really would like is feedback on what else, in what format you feel like would make you comfortable, right?
And everybody can see that, correct?
It's a little small for me, but
It's a
how are
little
you
small.
doing?
It's small, I mean, if
I
I
can
work
see it.
really hard, I guess.
There you go. Okay.
Much better,
That's better.
much better.
nicer.
That's
Thank
better.
you, Michael.
And did we, before you start,
Yeah.
did we figure out when Ludlow Electric last had a budget? Or when we?
Well, I will say, in fairness to Michael, that he has had a budget for the last few years. Whether that was approved by you or not, I don't know. Whether you saw it or not, I don't know. I'm considering that we're starting this anew. What I do know is, I don't think you've had a capital budget for a while, like big expenses for things that are gonna be capitalized. And we're presenting that tonight too, in draft, so that you can consider that. That's a 5-year budget, and would be a rolling 5-year, like next year it'll be revised when you know what's really going on, and you can keep moving it out. But I am not sure what type of budget you've all had in the past, or whether you feel like you've even known what that is. But I know internally there has been a budget, because that's why we're able to provide you with monthly comparisons from budget to actual. But I honestly don't know what your review of that has been, or understanding of that has been. And I'm kind of assuming none. All right. Michael,
Okay.
over to you, man.
This first page shows, this is this column is what we're budgeting for 2025. This column here is what was the actuals for the period of October 23 through September of 24.
So
I
a
had to
year,
use
but
that.
not a calendar year.
Not a calendar year, and then I just interpreted it into a calendar year. I had to, because that was the time frame I had with actuals in it, that were finished and completely closed.
We don't have actuals for previous years?
For
Oh,
previous years,
oh, yeah,
yes,
we do, but we're
we based the
trying
budget
to-
only on 1 year's worth of actual data.
We're trying to move forward. The older years are not going to be particularly helpful in the annual budget.
And why is that?
Because of increases,
Price
rate
changes.
increases, price changes, salary increases, all those different things, all,
I mean, we can certainly show those two if you want to see like what has happened over the last 5 years in terms of budget. I have no problem providing you with that, but
Yeah.
you'll see the
Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested.
you'll
just to
see the
know.
prices increase dramatically, and it's a result of primarily because of what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
inflation, yeah.
Power costs,
Yeah.
inflation, personnel, and some other supply issues, but mostly, I mean, usually we base the next year budget off of the current year budget to the extent that and the current year actual expenses to the extent we know them. And what Michael's saying is we know them, it's now November, we know them from September or October through September, so we can base the full year, but it's not this calendar year, because we're trying to get this done before the end of December.
we have not closed October yet. It's still
Right,
open
right.
on the
Right.
general ledger. So that's why this one it's still a calendar year, but it's a slightly different than
Yeah, Michael, can you,
More
should this
recent calendar
be
year than
scrolled
we
up at
actually
all?
get
Is
to.
there?
Well, I was going
oh,
to, I
yeah,
wanted to
there
show
you
the
go.
bottom line
Yeah.
first.
Oh, okay, fine, yeah.
Budgeting for a $1.2 million loss. That's a loss. That was calendar year, that year I told you was at $756,000 loss. What these are called activity codes here. So like general labor is activity code 1. So we're budgeting $1.1 million just in labor. No overheads, just actual paychecks. We were at 1.025 in '24. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to call this 24 and this 25.
Yeah,
Then we have medical and safety supplies, housekeeping supplies, gifts, advertising, employee benefits for health insurance, another big one. Purchase power transmission, $7.5 million. That's a $677,000
You can see that
increase.
yeah, that is the huge one, right? That's almost well, it's almost $750,000 if you want to round off.
Right.
Not
Well,
that,
only a 10% increase? I mean, I guess because we're
Well, I have the
only a
explanation for
10%
that.
increase in healthcare costs.
sorry, in what?
In healthcare?
So the healthcare is,
Seems
where
low.
was that? It was, I think 29,000, yeah, it's,
29,000, it's less than 10%
Yeah.
in total. We had some people, like Brett is going from a family plan down to a two-person plan, I think, or we've had some changes.
So it's
in
just
the-
internal,
yeah, internal
some
changes,
internal
yeah.
shifts that
yeah.
Yeah.
have mitigated some. Because otherwise, we're talking about, I mean, in general, estimating health insurance increases every other budget I've seen is like 20-25%.
Interesting,
Yeah,
yes,
30%.
yeah.
And
And,
so just to make sure that we're preparing for
yeah,
what's
And I may-
coming, which is,
I
and,
did think about that, and I think I have accidentally put in only at 5% on the healthcare,
mhm.
but it's one of the things, I'll show you how the assumptions we made on the next tab.
all right.
So, Michael, just because of the union contract that negotiations, that included for the first time the potential for the employees to pay into their health care and to pay a share of their health care,
Which we hadn't been doing. Yeah.
which we have not been
so-
doing. So, did you kind of try to include that here? It's a little hard.
I didn't, I gotta look at that
It's hard at the
percentage.
moment because it's
So
not
much is in
finalized.
flux, yeah.
Yeah.
But that could also help offset kind of but it's not a lot.
It's
It's
very
like
minimal,
1%.
1%,
It's
yeah,
like
it's not-
1%. It's not huge.
So
It's
Betsy's
just a
explanation
start.
for the power cost increase is 10% due to one of our contracts, 2019 planned purchase contract has expired 12/31/2024, and is being replaced with a Stetson wind contract, which is at a much higher rate. Those older contracts were at lower rates. Now the power
Yeah.
cost is going up. And then the second piece of that is a 20% increase in our transmission costs from ISO New England.
Yeah, that is huge component of this too, and we have no utility in Vermont has any control over that. So ISO is transmitting, they're controlling stuff, they're controlling kind of the load and where it goes, and they're charging a lot more for that. And each state has representation on the ISO New England group, but I remember when I was commissioner and they wanted to add like 23 employees, I was apoplectic then, and this will come to a head, but there's nothing you as Ludlow Electric can do with that.
Employee retirement benefits are another big one. I am actually budgeting for a decrease in our union negotiation costs because we won't have as many going forward in 2025. There will be some because we're probably looking at a one-year contract. So there will be more going on, but it's not going to be as much as it was prior.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers
Knock on some wood there.
Assuming we actually have a contract.
Assuming we get one signed before the end of the year.
Exactly.
This
And
shows the hour and labor percentages for 2024 and 2025. You can see it's increased, yes, on a percentage basis, but it's not that big of a difference from
Can you just
2014.
Yeah, can you-
zoom in
Can
again?
you
Make
make
up,
that
yeah.
larger?
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's
Don't
okay.
be sorry.
That's-
Can't see it.
I know.
Can't
Thanks.
add to it.
Like,
So we are budgeting for $10.9 million
yeah,
in total costs for '25. Up
it's 900,000.
$10 million
higher.
in '24,
Yeah,
10.9 in '25, 900, that's a 1% basically, no, almost a 10% increase.
10% increase.
Most of that is in power costs, 700,000 of that is in power costs.
Even though the power costs have increased, if you look at the percentages, it looks like not that much, 68.18 to 68.73, it's a decent
Of the
amount.
overall budget.
Yeah.
But also the labor costs have increased, again, by maybe a reasonable amount, by 0.5%. But, yeah, overall, it comes to this amount that,
Wait, what is the 68 there?
68.73% is 25, the total power cost, 7.5 million divided by the 10.9%. So our power is 68.73% of our total costs.
And then labor is 18% of that.
18.72% of our
And
total
so what is
cost.
the other,
The other 13% is our just regular it's
The
all the other
miscellaneous.
things we do.
It, you know, it could be,
Materials.
it could be
and
tax,
transformers,
payment in
yeah.
lieu of taxes, it could be materials, it could be equipment, it could be
nuts, the
plowing,
bolts,
I don't know, yeah.
any other supplies and, you know,
Yeah.
Getting
Vehicle
Brett's new
fuel.
jacket with the new kind of, you know, orange, yellow stuff on it.
reflective.
So there's, but 13% is kind of
Yep.
the, truthfully, the flex, I mean, unless you want to deal with payroll substantially, right? The 18.7%, you're really, in terms of manipulating costs, you're dealing with that 13%, and it's not really, I wouldn't say it's not significant, because like it's $1 million something significant, but it's not very flexible, right? You can do it, but
there's not a lot there.
it's not a lot there, and you might spend a lot of time working on a very minor component of the budget. That's,
And just to give you an idea, one pair of electric gloves, the gloves that these guys have to have for safety, $350 for one pair. It's,
yeah, I
Yeah,
proved
yeah.
that the other day. I thought maybe it would be good, because they'll get a $500 allowance for boots. I was thinking maybe they could just buy an extra pair of boots and put them on their hands, but
The dexterity just isn't quite there.
dexterity's not quite there. But yeah, no, it's you know, it costs money to do this, and so go ahead.
what this is
Can
showing.
you expand this one too?
Yeah.
What this is showing is what we need to break even. Whoops, went too far. That's as much as I can do. Nope, still too far. Okay, why'd you go?
Yeah, I feel like you lost the.
Let me look at it here. Well, basically, I've lost it. I can't get back to it real easy. 13%, 12.99. Well, take our loss. If you take our total revenue, which is $9 million in 2025. Let me do this.
Yeah, let's see if we can get the 12.99 back there, because I think that's really kind of important.
Well,
Not sure how that happened, but it was there.
I do.
saw it.
I know how it happened, and it's a pain in the neck.
Okay.
Well,
So,
let me do this. I will bring it back in a little bit.
yeah, while you're working on that, I'll talk. That's
Yes.
right. This is like vamp until ready, as they say in the theater. So, so what we tried to do, there's some assumptions here which we'll go through, but I think I'll give you a heads up on some of those so that you know. One is, besides the union contract that we expect to be executed, we're also expecting to have to address the other staff, the office staff, in the context of the union contract in terms of benefits, costs, and in particular, the shift from separate sick time that you can accumulate indefinitely, vacation time that you can accumulate, sick time you get paid out for when you leave, trying to figure that out, and changing all that to a paid time off group of hours. And once we do that, I think one of the things that we would like to do is kind of start with a clean slate to the extent we can, which probably means paying out. This kind of gets to the cash management thing we were talking about before. Rather than continuing that substantial liability into the future, because our employees have been there 20 years, right? So they pay that out in a fashion that they feel like is acceptable. I think you all know that if you get a huge bonus in one paycheck, the the deductions are huge, because even though yearly they would not apply, the assumption is that you're making like $1.5 million because you got this paycheck.
Yeah.
So we could offer, and I think we should offer, to pay it out over several pay periods, but also even in the fiscal year 24 versus fiscal year 25, which will help people. But the goal would be to kind of pay them out and start us from not zero. The employee gets to decide how much they want to still retain for, like, if somebody gets sick or something, they don't want to cash it all out. But then they could invest it and it will get off our books and be more reasonable. So we've got kind of that concept, and I'll talk more about that in terms of like how we think we can do that, and you need to decide if you agree or not. Basically, would be the sale of our M&T stock, the private stock, which nobody seems to be able to know why we have that. It's not a lot, but it's something. And then not renewing one of our CDs that's coming due in January, which would provide more than adequate funds to pay for this type of thing. So, and it brings down our cash on hand.
And just so you're aware, that CD was originally set aside for the sole purpose of paying out the sick pay.
Oh,
It was
interesting.
definitely earmarked for that.
Oh, okay.
So that's what it was set up for.
Oh, good.
And
We'll
that's
be
what we're
using
gonna
it
be
for
using
that.
it for.
Okay.
And what I understand, I looked into the M&T stock, it was because it was Rutland Trust Bank
Okay.
years and years
It's
and
been so
years
many
ago.
different banks,
That,
Chittenden,
that they had come offering different businesses stock, and we took
Thank
advantage
you.
of it.
That's the best information I've had so
Yeah,
far.
I think it was
I did-
Rutland Trust, I believe.
Okay.
I've only been able to trace it back maybe 6 banks.
I
didn't
spoke-
know about the Rutland Trust.
Yeah, it was when Rutland Trust was just first started.
Yeah.
From what I was able to kind of find out.
Yeah.
I spoke to a retired bank manager she was Chittenden and Peoples.
Yeah.
And that's what her thoughts was, that when Rutland Trust first began, they went out and
Yeah.
offered.
So
different businesses
yeah,
stock.
Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've been accounting for this in our audit and on our books at the same value since we got it, right?
No, it did change in value with the M&T.
Oh, okay, when
Because
that transferred.
they were only gonna do whole shares,
Oh.
and they couldn't do
Yeah.
the,
How many
small
years
shares.
ago was that then?
that was in '21.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, so only 5 years going back, but there might be a value change, and I hope there's a value change in that. When we sell it, it's not like, I mean, instead of 25,000, maybe it'll be 32,000 or something like that, but we don't know until we actually sell it. So that's one provision, and then the idea of the CDs we have, which total, I want to say it's like
1.6.
1.6 million?
Yep.
So this would be a 500,000, 560, 70,000.
540.
40, thank you. See,
So,
I get the numbers generally right, but not generally right.
well,
So,
it's-
yeah, 540,000 we would not renew in January, so that we could use about half of that for the payments that we're talking about here.
Yep.
And the other half would remain in cash, or we could renew it in a CD, in a smaller CD if we wanted. But,
So 2 questions.
Yep.
When you say we sell it,
Mhm.
do we hire a professional to sell it? How does that work?
I had the same question,
How does that
and
work?
Michael told me that we could
Oh.
use
CompuServe,
CompuServe.
because they're the ones who sent us the dividend checks, and they were the ones, it's a brokerage.
So we
sell it
could
through a
just ask
brokerage.
them to sell it for
Okay,
us.
And we don't need a
We don't need a
second
Charles
opinion.
Schwab account. I was
Okay.
wondering whether I needed to, like, yeah.
I
open
wondered if we need a second opinion, or if we
Yeah.
just go with that.
it. Um,
No, we'd use a brokerage, and they'd take a share, yeah.
They do take a percentage. We could talk about, we'll find out what that
Okay.
percentage is and see if
Right.
you feel like it's reasonable. But, yeah, and then we could go from there, but I
Okay,
think,
that's fine.
at least we have an option.
I just wondered. who
Yeah, same here,
we
I
is-
thought.
We are. The other thing is, when you talk about flattening or whatever, sick time and vacation
Mhm.
and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So our new policies and procedures will reflect
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
we'll be starting from
Right.
scratch, and so it'll be.
They will, and after we
Like
get
sick
them.
time, use it at a certain period
Oh,
of time,
yeah.
or get paid, or.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, Sarah just gave me the, maybe not. Look, but here's what I think needs to happen, because obviously we're suffering from having policies and procedures that are either not in place or obsolete,
Yeah,
right?
agree.
But in the month and a half I've been here, there have been other priorities, including like trying to get this budget together and figuring out what's going on, doing that. So my hope is that early next year, if you can put up with that length of time, that then I would start with the personnel policies, and all of this would be integrated in it. I'd include the union stuff, we'd know what we're doing there, and the comparison between union and non-union people.
I just, because looks like it will probably be part of the 2025 budget.
Yeah.
I just want it clear that
Absolutely.
those costs going forward are gonna,
Yeah.
we're gonna see those yearly instead of a big payout at
Yes,
the end of 20
no,
years.
exactly, and no, you're not gonna see that anymore
Okay.
going forward, but I will say that because the union contract's not done, and I don't know how we're gonna treat existing staff relative to that, this is an estimate
Yes.
of what we think could happen. Sarah, you wanted to say something?
So I think you're asking maybe two things, one related to how will things be treated, and then how will you budget for how they'll be treated. To the extent that everything will be uniform as of January 1, 2025, so that people don't have banks of vacation time and sick time and, different kinds. Everything will have a uniform way of being accounted for. With the unionized employees, there is an option, and I'm guessing you'll make some decisions about if this is going to be the same for the non-unionized employees. There's an option for how much they want to potentially cash out, and some may want to cash out all of it and start with zero. But at least you will know as of January 1, what that bank value is. And to the other part of your question, which you probably already knew the answer to, was that we're putting a limit on how much you can accrue. And
From now on.
yeah, and that if you don't use it, you lose it after a high
Yeah.
number.
And I think the point of that is much like the concept of why people switched from, retirement pension accounts to the 401k or something. Businesses wanted to get this off their books and not keep it for 30 years of liability that they had to deal with. And that's kind of what we're doing, but we're trying to be fair with the employees and pay them out. They can invest it, and we encourage them to do that before they retire. They'll probably do better than just keeping it with us, but it'll make our books more predictable going
Right.
forward.
And while we still will have a liability on the books, it will be a much smaller liability, and we will know what that,
Yeah,
it will be the same
capital.
every year.
Yeah.
It won't, like ours has been continuing to grow. This one will be the same liability at maximum, yes.
And just to follow up on Jean's question, really, once we do make this decision of no sick pay, no, vacation,
Yeah.
this and that, level it out, is that dependent on the union contract?
It sort of is, because the union contract was the first foray into that concept.
Okay,
But it's not dependent on, it is a concept we could have implemented
okay,
independent of the union
Right, okay.
contract.
And you could have a policy that applies, that you've agreed to by contract, and then have a separate policy for everybody else. And that will be, if you want to have a different way of accounting for everybody else, you could.
Right.
You're at
There
will.
may be
But
some things
there-
like that.
There could be
Right.
probably a good
Administrative.
reason why administratively.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
more
If it's like-
really
complicated.
bad.
Yeah.
The union contract cause it, well, it at least set a standard, and then
Right.
the decision had to be made.
And that's
Right.
helping the,
Right.
okay.
We stay
So-
with that standard or
Yep.
don't do something.
I can
Yep,
give you,
and that
I
makes
can
sense.
give you a very poignant example of that right now, which is that, so the union contract calls for the union employees to pay 1% into their health care. That is not happening with the office staff. So if I go back to the office staff and say, congratulations, the union people have done this, and as a result, I want to charge you 1% of your health care. I certainly wouldn't say it that way. But ultimately, we need to figure out whether that is fair or a responsible response to the fact that we have two different kind of sets of employees.
Right. Okay.
Just, I got this back up just to show you.
Thank you.
These are all our revenue accounts. In order to cover our $1.2 million loss on a $9.6 million in revenue, we got to increase that revenue. That's really the only place we can work. And it's got to be a 12.99% increase in revenue.
Rate increase.
Which,
And some of the
That's
assumptions.
the
we
rate
made-
case, or the rate?
that's the rate case. That
Yeah,
would be the
okay.
rate case. And right now, we're paying.
We'll probably go in a little higher than
Yeah.
12.99 so that
In
they'll
case they
come
back
down.
us.
Right,
Yeah.
so the usual. And we're generally at like 12 cents a kilowatt hour right now. I mean,
12.25 is our standard
varies.
residential rate. It varies
Yeah,
in
it
different
does vary
classes.
in different places. And ultimately, by the way, for those of you who have picked up on this, we do want to deal with the rate design, which, as we talked about before, was like, when does demand energy kick in, when does it not, other stuff, right? We are leaning toward electrification. So we don't want to trigger a demand side electrical rate sooner than we would otherwise want to. So I just want to, the rate design is different than the rate itself. It's going to be it has to be a separate process, so
Yep.
you're going to have to deal with this. But the result is, so instead of 12.25, it's going to go to 13.84, still among the lowest in the state,
Mhm.
right?
GMP is 18.8 right
Yeah,
now.
Yep.
yeah. So I think, are people going to be unhappy with it? Yeah, because nobody wants to pay more, but are you still, I think there's a really good rationale for why this is okay, and also why you're strengthening the utility that's been around for 125 years.
Right,
Right.
yep.
So, I don't know, I mean, there's a whole political or marketing discussion we need to have about that, but that's kind of where we're headed. Otherwise, you really are, I mean, when I saw that we were at like $750,000 deficit, I was like, ah! But then you compare it to $10 million of income, it's like, oh, not so bad. But it's still bad because, and like, if I had to write the check, it would be a real problem. But, you know, it's in the context of the overall utility.
Okay, now we're getting into the details of what I did. These are all the different transactions that happened in our system.
Hey, Michael, can I just stop you a second and
Yeah.
ask, is this something you want to spend time to look at right now, or do you want to not do that now? Because I want to.
I'd like to take a few minutes to explain it so you can understand it when you're looking at it.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, why don't you, yeah, take a couple of minutes.
So
over
like
that.
this one, this 582 is station expense. Department here is line maintenance. That's Brett's department. We have general labor, water and coffee, medical and safety supplies, all the different things. These are the assumptions we made as to an increase in those. For labor, we're assuming an 11.2% rate increase, increase in those costs based upon the union contract. Most of the other expenses, we're assuming a 1% rate increase. And if we went all the way down every single line item and put those all in.
Okay.
So
all
you'll
these
see
different
that.
percentages. So what this percentage does is take these actuals, which are here, look here, and just transfer them over into this orange column here. You can't see it there, that's the budgeted column. So it takes these actual columns, multiplies it times the increase that I'm assuming, and I get actuals on a monthly basis
Through the year. Yep.
through the year.
And then we'll be able to start seeing these kinds of things in our monthly,
Yes, yeah. The
Sheets.
other thing is that we'll be.
we'll see where these,
Yeah, we will compare,
And what this
assuming
does-
you approve a budget, once
Yeah.
that gets approved, then we will show you actuals month to month toward, to
as
that
things start
budget.
to,
And
and we
what
can
this
start to
does,
see some of this now.
It
Yeah.
takes all these
Financial
activity
systems.
codes, which I showed you, the different waters
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like this, and totals them up by year. And then it shows a variance
Yeah,
So that's
at the
20,
activity code level. So you can see all the labor, all the water, the
Yeah.
water and coffee, the,
so stop
Fuel-
mentioning
fuel
coffee
tax.
because they're gonna cut the coffee.
I know. The one that's probably gonna hurt the most
It's
is coffee.
exactly, that's right,
Stop
that's
coffee.
exactly right. So,
Don't
yeah,
stop.
so stop mentioning coffee. So going back up, I just want to say that what you got in these columns is 2025, the 2024 year that we've been able to look at,
Right.
right? The 1023 to 924, and then the variance, so in all these categories. So you'll see all that. And when we get to the bottom, you'll see the result, which is we're
1.249.
1.249 short. Again, probably at 12%, 12.99% comes back to that.
And it's a, yeah. 677,000 is the increase in power cost.
Yeah,
Almost
Yeah.
half of it is due,
And
yeah.
that's more than what the variance is.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
So,
We're saving money in other places, but it's
We
just,
are
there's
actually.
not enough to
Right.
save to make up that difference.
yeah.
Mhm.
The
And
only
there's no
place we
way.
can do it is increase our revenue.
Right, right.
And again, we're not gonna be unique. Not only are all the other PEPSA, municipal utilities gonna have to deal with this, but Green Mountain Power and WAC and BEC will also have to deal with it.
Sarah?
Just a quick question based on previous conversations I've had with this group. The column A,
Yep.
the description of all of your items, I
That's-
know in some entities, there has to be some sort of a standardization, and I wondered if you follow a standardization or if it's
No,
something that
we
you
do.
follow.
I didn't use the FERC account. I used activity code for this
So
standardization.
that you could see it.
So you
and
can know what
understand
those
it.
costs are for. Because
That's
the
helpful.
FERC account is something completely different.
For,
It's like a code,
it-
right?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a system we must use, but it's not
It's not as intuitive.
intuitive.
Right, and
It's
that's
not
what we were
intuitive.
dealing with
That's what we've
the
been
last few
getting.
times,
Yeah.
not
So we were
understanding,
concerned
yep.
about-
So
yep,
we wanted
okay.
to move to this kind of
this is
activity
way
code
better.
Yeah,
where you'd
this
be
is
able to see and understand what it is.
exponentially better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if, like I
Knowing
said,
how to break out those, showing some of those hidden columns and stuff too,
Right,
now I can
right.
actually.
talk about coffee.
yeah.
Yeah, talk about coffee,
Well,
you
let's
can
look
talk
at,
about supplies, you can talk
Equipment
about,
and tool, equipment and tools.
you can talk about legal and regulatory, Sarah's
See, now-
bill.
Now
yeah.
I can show you the FERC account that equipment and tools goes into.
He's able, yeah, this is gonna be, you guys have access to this live spreadsheet. So to the extent that you're comfortable with Excel, you can do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
To the extent you're not, you don't have
Just by
to.
clicking on this little plus or minus sign here, it will open up the FERC accounts that goes with that activity code.
Okay.
So you can see for costs and jobbing expenses. When we do a job for somebody, we record the cost separately from the revenue from that job. So we have some 13,000 there. Meter expenses, office supplies and expense of $2,000. Station expense, that's a FERC account. That's mostly where Brett works, for tools and stuff. A lot of tools that we buy over $1,000 get capitalized. These are tools and supplies under $1,000.
Yeah. So standard stuff that we need to get.
So that's how this little pivot table can be very helpful.
Okay.
So anyway, you will be able to play with this if you want, to see these type of things and connect from this kind of activity code to the stuff we really need to budget, like in accordance with the FERC accounting processes. But they do relate, and hopefully it'll make sense to you. And
And if you go here,
And we're happy to answer any questions from each of you individually, obviously not as a group offline, but we can do that anytime you would like to. You have a question, call, but I do need you guys to become familiar with this over the course of the next month so that we can respond to it, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And if you see something that you really disagree with, you can let us know. There's some basic things that you all need to vote and vote on. One is, like, what would you feel to be a reasonable cost of living increase for employees next year? Are you okay with us adding another position as administrative assistant for Brett? Are you okay with, those are the big ones that we have control over personnel-wise. And the power costs, can't do anything about.
But you present those
Yes.
before.
Absolutely. So, but those are some of the assumptions. And there might be others, Michael, you want to mention, but those are some of the assumptions we made in producing this 2025 budget, was adding that position for Brett. Adding an additional, not only the 3.2% that was discussed with the union backwards for all staff, but roughly 5 or 6% increase for this coming year. We have not established any budget for merit raises. This is all based on COLA concept. At some point, we may want to get there, but I don't think we're ready for that right now. I don't think it's necessary. Are there other assumptions we made here, Michael?
No, I think you covered them all. I did,
Okay.
like I did for the one person, what I did is I went and figured out what that annual salary would be, divided it by 12, and added that each month
Mhm.
for that one administrative person, and put in their overheads as well.
Yep.
And the concept here is, Brett and I share one skill, or lack of skill. Lack of skill. We're both like,
Just one?
well, there are probably
We haven't spent that
more.
much time together.
We haven't spent that much time together to know what other things we don't have. But, computers, the GIS system, electronic management of data, not our thing, okay? Even 2 cell phones, not our thing. So, right now, I can't tell you how impressed I am with this NISC system, the GIS, the system management in terms of actual things in the field, line extensions and billing those out, and the connection to the billing process, and the connection to the staffing. It is pretty incredible, but it requires kind of attention. And that's not his forte, it's not my forte. The idea is to get, and we are training Brian and Ryan in the use of that system to update it, and that's going to be really helpful. But truthfully, based on this system, like, if you move poles, like we're moving them for the flood thing, we're moving them out of the flood zone, that needs to be re-entered into the GIS system as a correction to the existing system. That is not something that, those are the type of things that we feel like this administrative assistant or technical assistant, whatever you want to call them, would be able to help with and keep track of and help work with Brian and Ryan to make sure that those things are being done. Because otherwise this system becomes obsolete very quickly if you don't update it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a very worthwhile position. And I'd like to support that.
Yeah, it's a lot of these components now with NISC. Whenever you do a job, it was multiple steps before we had NISC.
Yeah.
The billing to a customer and this and pulling stuff from inventory. Now it's a lot less steps.
But you're gonna be able to
But
do it
it's
on a
more-
computer.
But it's gotta be, yeah, but it's.
Very computer
But it's
literate.
very computerized, so, yeah, and that's the challenge. I mean, eventually we'll be dead, and, you know, a 13-year-old will come in here and be able to do it without any trouble, but right now,
So, so this may be obvious, or you can make it obvious, what you've already built in the budget
right.
that will be perceived as, or will be increases to what we already have.
Yes.
So I'd like to just.
See what
get it.
those are.
Yeah, I mean,
We
you
can
don't
certainly do
do a big
that.
spreadsheet.
No,
Just
we
tell
can.
us what it is.
I think we can very quickly do that and tell you, you know, like I said, the assumptions are pay increases for staff based on either the
Yeah.
union or other staffing, the new position,
Yeah.
cost of healthcare, cost of other, we can
Right.
certainly produce that for you, so you can see the difference.
Because it's not that I'm opposed to those
No,
kind
but
of
you need to
things,
see it.
but I just would like to see what you've already built in
Exactly.
to the budget.
Yes, exactly. This is always kind of a dance, a little bit of a dance. I'm presenting you with a budget that makes some assumptions
Right.
that you haven't agreed to yet, right?
Right.
So I want to make those really clear to you so you can decide yes or no, and then we'll adjust the budget
Okay.
from there. But yes, we can certainly provide that with you, for you.
So we are saying that we're not, we don't have much control over power costs.
Right.
And so the power costs are up. I guess I am wondering, are we budgeting or do we have a place that we are thinking about ways to develop power resources so that we can rely less on outside
Right.
power costs?
I think it's fair to say that we're in our infancy of that, but we are starting it.
Right.
For example, the Stonehouse Solar Project is
Yeah.
actually a very good rate,
It is.
if we can get that.
And that's great.
Right.
And I'm just wondering
The
about
The
future-
Okemo battery project, if we can get a piece of that and get control of that for certain hours, like particularly in the summer,
Yep.
when they don't need it, right? If we can control that, we can reduce our peak load. But that, I think those are the only two we've got so far, so we need
And
to.
so are
talk
there
about-
any other places that we have ideas about budgeting for development of future resources?
We
other
haven't,
resources
we have
that we
not
can-
yet, and that would be a great discussion to have with you all about what,
Yeah.
and we can bring in some people who understand the costs and benefits of some of those things.
Yeah, and we did
Yeah.
talk some of
Yeah.
that with the VEPSA people,
Yeah.
and I know that that's some of their goal. I just feel like as we're looking at this increase, and we know that this increase is, it's gonna hurt us, what are we doing to make sure that we're prepared for next year and
Right.
we can not face this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I have looked into a little bit is water turbines and such, and there are some kind of neat programs just starting now. I've been in touch with one of the companies that is just starting to bring it on through a solar company. They went from just being a solar company to now using water. It's a very small unit. It goes into your house. It runs off your gray water. There's so the gentleman I spoke to would be interested in coming and talking to the board about it. I kind of mentioned it to you as well.
Yeah.
One of the hard things I know about being in the valley and being in Ludlow with solar is that a lot of these homes, we don't get a lot of sun here, and a lot of the homes have slate roofs, and they will not put solar into on a slate
right.
roof. So I think I would like to invite this gentleman to come and give a spiel to us about, and I know I've spoken to you about
Yeah.
it too.
And this kind of fits into another, a bigger, Michael and I were talking about this earlier, that Efficiency Vermont has all these programs that should support any, like, homeowner, any person, but nobody really knows about that. So the work that they've been doing has been primarily only with Okemo and the talc, place, and that's it. So there's a lot of opportunity for them to incorporate. And what they do is they evaluate things like you're describing.
Yep.
They then include them as part of their kind of package that they'd be willing to do, and then they get installed. But, certainly, I certainly think hearing about anything that actually improves
Yeah.
efficiency for people is worth doing.
Efficiency Vermont, and what's that other one? Is it,
SEVCA is our community action agency there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They don't, I mean, they do efficiency Vermont work in our area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff
yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Keep on-
They actually do
Yeah.
the physical installation
Okay.
work.
They're
Yeah.
like Black River Good Neighbors is another one. We work closely with Black River Good Neighbors and
Oh.
Sevka to help people get their electric bills paid.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay, so it's like 5:06. I think, Michael, can we,
Do you want to do your capital one?
I think we need to go to the capital budget at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
And briefly overview this, if you would,
An
please.
overview of the way a capital process works is you do construction work in progress. So when you're working on something and it's not implemented, it's not ready for service, it goes into this account called construction work in progress. If you can see up here, we have a number of jobs where we have things in progress. Once it gets finished up here and it goes in service, it moves down into our capitalized assets and retirements. So you'll see a lot of negatives up here, but you'll see positives down here. So you're taking that asset, moving it from in process to in service, and you start depreciation at that point. When it's in process, when it's being constructed, you can't depreciate it at all. So that's why we separate out.
And this is relevant in terms of your rate case as well, because remember, it has to be used and useful, known and measurable, right? Those are the two things. So you can't ask for the rate case to include any of those costs in the construction work in progress until it gets down,
Until it gets down into here.
until they're effective, right? Then you can put all this into a rate case. So that's the challenge in managing this.
And now for construction work in process, I did put in the
Excuse myself
FERC
for a
accounts.
second. Keep it good. Yep. I'm sorry.
FERC account does separate by, these are transmission-related assets. These are distribution-related assets. These are general assets. And then you have your accumulated depreciation down here. And what I've done is put in 2025 through 2029, 5-year period. This is our what's on our books right now. That 103 line cost us $471,000. That's what we spent to put that in. We're gonna get $376,000 of that back. We're probably gonna get another $40,000, maybe $30,000 from TDS, because TDS shares our poles with us. Because TDS used to own Ludlow Telephone. Ludlow Electric and Ludlow Telephone have always shared the poles. So TDS will pay us a portion of this as well. So we're gonna have this on our books. So I'm expecting this to be on our books for this amount right here, these $22,800 in each of 4 different assets. Because we have to separate poles from wires, from conduit, from underground conduit, underground conductors. Per FERC, we have to separate those out. So I'm expecting about $91,000 in assets once we capitalize that. So what we really, this is what the jobs we're expecting. We're going to, well, I got a spelling error there. That should say landscaping. I'm not a speller. And then I just put in holders for these 4 years' worth of jobs we'll be working on. And put those out at $100,000 per year in construction work we'll be doing for each of those years. And then I put in some expected, Brett and I and Chris sat down and went through what we expected for costs for each of these years. The AMI, we're expecting that to cost about $1.3 million when we get finished. And that will go down into the asset when it, we're hoping to get it in an asset by 2027. And so That's basically our capital budget right now. It, you know, we're gonna be spending, we're gonna go from, on our books, $2.1 million in net assets to $7.5 million in net assets. So we're gonna be spending quite a bit of money for assets. This is another reason, by doing it this way, though, we can show the PUC that, yes, we have all these projects we have to finish. They've got to be done. We've got to do the AMI.
Yeah.
And we need to recover those costs.
Are we seeing the transformer or the substation?
Yep, that's
there.
up here.
Yeah, that's up there for
Yeah.
one point.
This one right here,
Oh, yeah, right there.
1.25 million is what we're in total, because
The new
we've already
regulators we
spent
talked about.
$2,400 in engineering costs for that.
Other major, are all these things, in theory, these things, are they kind of mentioned in the, what was that plan? The IRP?
IRP.
Some of these are.
Some
in
of them
theirs.
are, the transformer has not, because that technically won't go until the next one, which is next,
This, 25, we'll be doing a new
There should
IRP
be a
in
new
25.
IRP.
right,
Yeah.
so in 25, that
And we
one.
didn't
No,
know
we're gonna
about-
call out some of these
Yeah.
bigger.
In 2022, we didn't know about this new transformer when we
Right.
did that IRP.
No,
Yeah, so we didn't know that, so it wasn't in there.
And do we have, do we also have vehicles on this?
Yes. That, vehicles go right into 392, right here, transportation equipment.
Right,
Mhm.
We have a $500,000 truck coming in.
yep,
And then another 450,000 done 2 years after that. And then we figure 50,000 a year for these 2 years, for replacing of pickup trucks that will be aging out by then.
right.
Mhm.
We've also been putting in about $5,000 a year for office supplies, new computers, and other office supplies over $1,000 each.
Yeah.
Yep, fairly normal, modest,
Yep.
yeah.
Michael, I want to say thank you, because you've been able to explain this to us much better than ever before. I mean, it really
Oh,
makes
this
so
is-
much more
yeah.
sense than.
I feel like this is what I've been
you've-
looking for
You've
since
done
I
a really
started
great
here.
job, and I appreciate it. I
Thank you.
really.
Yeah, this is awesome.
This was a lot of work.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sure.
sure.
I
It
can
looks like
only
it.
imagine.
I'm insane about
But,
it.
but it shows, and.
Really appreciate it.
And it does,
That
it really,
pivot
it gives
table-
us that,
In
being
the
able
P-
to
yeah.
understand, you know.
That P&L pivot table will give you a lot of information.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we decided to do it by the activity code, because we figured that would make more sense
Oh,
for you guys.
so much more
So much
Than a
sense.
more clear,
FERC
yeah.
account.
Yeah,
If you don't know
absolutely.
FERC account, yeah.
There was no, there was no way to understand it.
translate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You've done a wonderful job, and it shows. I
Yeah.
really do appreciate it.
Yeah, really
Nice
appreciate it.
work.
All right, you guys have the spreadsheets. If you have any questions about them, please
Yeah.
ask me.
Yeah.
I can, like I said, I do spreadsheets all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
No? Okay. So let's move on to other business. There was something I wanted to bring up, but,
You have charter too,
Oh,
but you go ahead.
oh, I had
You can
charter
bring it in.
underneath other business.
Totally fine.
Okay, so we had approved those lights that Andy and Meredith wanted to
So it
give for the
started to go
bridges.
up, yeah.
Yep, I discussed with them and actually some other people about doing a light up Ludlow ceremony. Maybe we could include that in the article for the
Yeah.
journal, but doing something, you know, like lighting up some trucks and stuff like that, like just doing something nice for the town, you know, since we're donating these, or since they're donating the lights, we're donating the power. I think it'd be really nice to, I think I mentioned to you doing a light up Ludlow.
Yeah, so I think last time I had volunteered to write up a draft of this and I didn't do it, so my apologies.
I've taken some notes. I heard that maybe you would, or have started on a journal
No,
article?
no, not really.
Okay.
No, I've done some reach out, but I haven't
Okay,
getting any good feedback from.
So, yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how to build this into, like, this is a new board with
Right.
new initiatives, we're doing new stuff.
Yep.
We're really supportive of you, and we're trying to do
saving the
good things.
bears.
And we're gonna do a 13% increase. No,
Yeah,
just.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
No, not
Well,
the same
I
thing.
think that's
But,
important.
Yeah, so here's what I guess I will promise you. You know, now that we're through kind of the budget
Yeah.
issue, Why don't I'll work on this kind of article.
Yep.
And then I hope that if you present it to the Journal, that they'll then ask for interviews to like talk about some things. So you get some quotes and some good
Mhm.
stuff in there. But I will do that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Because like I got, over this hurdle,
Yeah.
I got a couple of weeks here that
Sure,
I can
sure.
do this, so.
And another thing I had asked him for was to, for all of us on the board to get a Ludlow Electric email address.
Right.
Oh,
So we're
yes.
not dealing with the.
Michael,
I
because
have
you've been
a-
working on that.
Yeah, I can do it. It's not,
Okay.
not a problem. But I wanted, thinking that we set it up by your position, rather than be individual, so yours would be
Sure.
chairperson
Sure.
at Ludlow Electric,
Yep.
yours would
And
be
then it
vice
can just
chair at
transfer
Ludlow
if-
Electric.
yep.
Then it can
Secretary.
transfer to the
Yep.
next
And
person,
then- and then
whoever
it can
comes.
move on.
Yeah.
All right,
Is that
now that
okay?
I've got your approval for that, I'll get them
Yep.
set up.
I think that's
Yeah, that
wonderful.
makes a lot of sense.
Is that
Yeah, I
okay?
agree.
Yep.
Will that be under, I mean, do we use like Outlook or Gmail?
You can
You
use
can use
Outlook, I'll
anything
set
you
up
want.
a password for you,
Yeah.
Okay.
and then I will give everybody a page. You'll go in and you'll reset the password to it. I can't see anybody's password, but I can reset them.
Right, okay,
Yep.
excellent, wonderful.
And remember, anything you do on those is subject to public records request.
Yeah.
It's
Correct.
so good that you're using your own, you're using a company.
But it's better, yeah,
Right,
than
yeah.
using
I mean,
your
to go for your own
personal, right.
personal.
Right,
yes.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
We're making
excellent.
our
Because when,
entire personal
when
account.
the FBI comes for your cell phone records, they have to come for everything. It's gonna, yeah. no.
Okay,
Cool.
anything else under other business? Okay, let's move on to the charter positions.
All right. So, I brought toys. Michael, do you want to join us? Because then you can use your toys also.
Sure, I
All
love
right.
toys. I'm a
So take one of each and pass them around. And I think I might have passed, okay, good, you all have a copy of that.
good for you?
This is what I'm passing around is what we're gonna walk through today. I'm gonna give you paper in case you wanna flip back and forth. There also, we won't make all decisions today, so I'm gonna give you these as well that you don't really need unless something comes up today. And I'll explain what they are.
So, we take one of each?
One of each. Oh, sorry.
No.
And I'll
I
explain.
like
what
that
the-
no is in red. Yeah, that's very good.
So I did this facilitation certification a while ago, years ago. And they have all sorts of tools to help bring people to consensus. And that's what we'll use these for. There's another reason we're using those, and that's because when I join your meetings, we have a history of going for a long time. And I'm gonna try to see if maybe we can keep this short.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So what my goal is for us to at least go through this document. This document is simply a draft. It's the one with the comments on it. It's a potential draft of some of the language that would go into a charter. And what I'm looking for today is for feedback here. You may not need to make every decision, but at least enough feedback so that I can continue to work on this, potentially come back to you or,
And you have one of these. Okay. I'm gonna share this with
you know, somehow circle back if there are further decisions that need to be made. The ultimate decision makers won't be you.
was small.
The ultimate decision makers on what goes into this will be the select board and the village trustees when they approve what will be the same version of a draft of the whole charter. What I want to be able to tell them when I go before the select board, and hopefully Brett and I talked about having the select board and the trustees having a joint meeting in December, is I want to bring a version of the draft, the full draft, with this probably being one of the bigger topics of discussion. But when I bring this before them, I want to be able to say, this has the feedback from the department, and it, oh wait, do you need another one?
Well, I had one.
There you go. Maybe when I scooted my papers over, I might have grabbed it.
So, can I ask a stupid question right up front? Is the ELED a type a typo, or is,
Electric.
are we
Yeah.
calling this something
No, no, no,
different?
Yeah, so, sorry.
Ludlow
it's
Electric,
LELD.
it's
I always
LELD.
do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be
That's okay. So-
obstreperous, but.
What we
LELD.
could easily end up doing tonight, which is what I'm gonna try to avoid, is getting so far in the weeds on any particular issue that
Okay,
we
like the
don't-
acronym.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, that's all right. But that's why I'm gonna be a little bit of this.
Yeah, fine.
And I'm gonna ask you to rely on your cards. So these cards, what we'll basically do is, we'll go through these. And in the first instance where these comments are and where I have questions, I'll give you a second just to kind of orient yourself to it. You don't need to have, full, this is, don't be too scared by, I haven't fully understood the context and things like this. I think I'm just gonna be asking you some gut, like knee-jerk questions. And what I'd like from you is, if what I'm suggesting sounds great, you have no problems at all, we can move on, just put your green card in front of you. If you do want to stop and talk about it, because we will get to some that I have written in here to discuss.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've written it one way, but know that there could be a couple of different ways. Then we'll stop and discuss, and I'll get your feeling about what might be the best draft to bring before them, what version it should look like. And if we get to something and you're like, let's just stop right here, because we're opening up a can of worms, then I would rather us kind of stop and say, for tonight, let's set this conversation aside for whatever reason.
Discuss or no, you mean, or no? Are you
Yeah, for
talking
no,
about
it's
Yeah.
unlikely that you'll use the no, but I don't know. So I'm
Okay.
asking you
Yeah.
guys, for example, there might be something around financing and bonding or something, and, big can of worms. You're like, Sarah, can I talk with you before we go and confuse people any further? You can be like, no, okay, we'll put that aside and we'll talk about it.
Okay. So what's the on card for?
It's a no card.
I'm just saying.
I like
That's
That's
why they're
on.
color, that's why
Yeah.
they're color coded.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
good.
so, the first question, so these, don't pay attention
Like
to the
the
numbers
sacred.
or the orders, because I've pulled them out of my
Great.
master draft,
Okay.
for where they potentially might live. So the first question I have is just to confirm, do we think that the name of the new, and currently, it is the Village of Ludlow Light and Electric, and Light Department.
Right.
No, Village of Ludlow Electric Light Department.
Electric Light Department.
There's no end, as
No,
I've
yeah.
discovered. Yep.
So, do we want to call this, oops,
The Ludlow Electric Department.
the Ludlow Electric Department, sorry, I even put it wrong here.
Yep. I think that
Ludlow Electric Light
Yeah.
Department.
you want
Wait,
light.
wait,
You
no,
want light in.
wait.
Okay. God, she's a tyrant. Okay.
So through this, I'm gonna call it the Electric Department. And if we decide to do something else, we'll change it. There's a typo here. So to clarify, no matter what, it's gonna be the Town of Ludlow. So Town of Ludlow Electric Department. Otherwise known around town as the Electric Department. Or the Ludlow Electric Department if you're out of town.
Yeah.
We have,
Okay,
okay. Currently in our system, we have a number of people who refer to us as Ludlow Electric. Plain and simple. We've seen, the problem with having the village or the town in the name is we will receive payments that belong to the village. We could receive payments that belong to the town, and they will receive payments that belong to us.
yeah.
So we want to try to keep that distinction, that Ludlow Electric versus the town of Ludlow, or the village of Ludlow, because it will avoid some confusion.
Well, I think right now, the village versus the town is the confusing part of it, not the electric department part, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Ludlow
Like I said, we will get payments all the time for people
Okay.
paying their water bills.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, so I think what I'm hearing is agreement that it will be the Town of Ludlow. it is the electric department of the town of Ludlow, and it may be doing business as Ludlow Electric. When you're in a select board meeting or a commissioners meeting and you're differentiating between that and the water department, you may just call it the electric department, et cetera. Okay.
From a business, because I think we'll have to file with some other people and change the name for the Secretary of State.
Just throw you it out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just, correct, and Linden is still, they made their change a year and a half ago now, and they said they still haven't even changed, and I saw this up in Lindenville 2 days ago, they still haven't changed the name on their trucks. Or outside their building.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna get into the duties of the elected officers after, but first, I wanna talk about, giving the select, there's two things you could do. You could say there are going to be 5 commissioners, or whatever number you decide. Or you could say, of the commissioners of the Ludlow, well, I'm gonna change this all now that we've decided what it's gonna be. You can say that the select board can decide that it won't be fewer than 3 or more than 7, or put some range in there. At a previous retreat, we had talked about everything from 3 to 9. I understand from conversation that 5 is probably where you want to land, but this would give you the flexibility from time to time to go and change your numbers without having to change the charter. So the question I pose to you is, not what number do you want, unless you know right now we only want to recommend that the select board name a specific number, or do you want a range? So if you want a range, put your green card up. Or if you want to discuss it more, put your yellow card up. All right, yep,
I feel like
Yeah.
my thought would be, maybe not necessarily a range, but just to say no fewer than 5.
okay,
Because I think that the idea of having more, and as we've talked about, like maybe we do want to have an ex officio member or some member from Plymouth or Holly or wherever else. But to say that we have a minimum of 5 and it's always going to be 5, but we could go up to 9 or whatever it is.
Right.
But just to say the
7,
base is 9.
yeah, I would not go up to
5.
9. It sounds a little bit like the
I
Supreme
don't,
Court.
not saying that I
But
want
yeah.
to, but give the
the
select board
range.
the.
Gotcha. I think
the
I think the range is helpful because, but the only concern I have with what Logan is suggesting is if it's a minimum of 5, does that mean if there's a vacancy that you can't take any actions until that vacancy's filled?
As long as you still have a
No, you
quorum,
have
you're
a quorum.
fine.
yep.
Okay.
But then you have to have a
Yeah.
quorum of 3.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry,
And-
that's,
Just because I'm a numbers person, with a 3-year term, a commissioner of 5, you'll have 2, 2, and 1 being elected
Right.
on that 3-year term. Then it'll go back to a 2, 2, 1.
Right.
There's
You
no
are a
problem with
numbers
that, but I
person.
just want to make sure everybody's
Well,
aware.
similar to what the
That you
select
can do
board
the
does.
select board, you do 2, or you do 3 for 3-year terms, and then you do 2 for a 1-year
Yeah.
term.
Which I really like that
Okay.
structure, and I think that would be something I would want to emulate, just because you have 3 that are sort of your officers, then you have 2 that maybe they don't have as much
They don't
experience.
know about
and
it, and
they're-
they just wanna try it.
They
or-
try it for a couple of years, and maybe they do or don't transition to a 3-year term at some point.
Okay.
so when, no, that's too,
Okay,
I'm not
we're
gonna
gonna
go.
just
I'm
do
not-
one
yep,
topic at a
sorry.
time, so
Okay,
that we can get through
fine.
them.
Keep going.
So we're good on a range, we're from 5 to 9 or 5 to 7?
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're gonna come back to the, so we're good with that, okay.
Maybe
Um,
it should be 5 or 7. You don't want an even number, right? We never
Well,
want an even
you leave
number.
that, yeah.
Select board can make that decision.
Alright,
I
fine.
trust them to
Yep.
have the discretion.
Alright.
Okay, so
I don't know.
now,
Do you trust this chair of the select board, really?
so now we're going to the vacancies in town office. So, there's one thing that, so I'm gonna talk to you about it, but the village and the select board hasn't seen this provision yet, and they may just nix it, and in which case I would just assume that this would be nixed. But if they like this, and they do agree with some version of it, I wanna know if this would apply to you, and that is that, if a member fails to attend at least 50% of your meetings in a quarter, that you can have, that the office would be declared vacant, and in which case we'd go back to the select board appointing someone to fill it. Now, a quarter might be too small, and it might be something
Yeah, I
where.
was gonna say, I mean,
where,
that's 2 meetings in a row.
You know,
I'd say half. If,
Yeah,
mean,
I
if
think
you're gonna do
half.
it, You did it in 6 months.
In a half year, over 6 months.
Over 2 quarters or something, yeah, I mean, 2 meetings is,
Yeah, that's, they could be gone on
I suppose
vacation
that's-
and it overlap just right, and they can miss 2 meetings.
You know, they're in
It's
a
like
hospital for one and they're
So-
on vacation for the next one. It's, yeah.
I
I
guess
think 6
my
months.
discussion, because I raised my yellow card, nobody else, did, but this should be consistent with the other town things, right? This should not be a unique thing for
Right.
Ludlow Electric. But I agree with what I've heard, that like, 2 meetings, you know, in a row could very well be missed. It's usually more than that
So
occurs.
don't get fixated on the number. Let the select board and the village trustees decide whatever that uniform number is gonna be for the big, for like select board. The general question is, for some offices like listers, which don't really meet, planning commission members, probably I'm not gonna recommend that makes sense for you. But potentially, you might want it for wastewater, but do you want it for, you're giving a lot of authority, and this board has a lot of authority
Right.
that's delegated to it. And so the question is, does it demand the same level of accountability if the charter gives that accountability to the select board?
Well, it depends. For me, it would depend on what the select board decides to do. If they say, yeah, if you miss 2 meetings in a row, we're kicking you off, then I'm not sure that applies to
Okay.
us. But it's not really, okay, this is not up to me, I'm just giving my opinion. It really is up to you guys, and. the
no, I mean, I
select
think I
board
agree. I
should-
wouldn't want it to become like a political, I could see situations where it would turn into like
A tool.
an opportunistic,
Yeah.
like, we didn't like that person, we didn't want them
Yeah.
on the board, and
Yeah.
they missed the meeting, and so we have the authority to kick them off, and I
Right.
want to avoid that kind of situation.
Yeah, and things happen. People, you know,
Yeah.
But with the 50%, that isn't just missing 2 meetings, is it?
50% in a quarter would be,
50% in
yeah.
a quarter.
Oh, in a
Yeah,
quarter,
over 3
oh,
months.
oh, oh,
3
oh,
months.
So-
A quarter is
Oh,
3
I see.
months.
So I
for
have
I
a
see.
feeling
meetings, yeah.
that this provision, you know, when it applies to the select board in other towns, it's probably like, you know, that would be, what, 6 meetings? So you'd have to miss 4 of 6 meetings is what it was intended to be.
For towns that meet twice a month.
Yeah, and so you
Yeah.
could, the idea would be, the feedback I'm trying to get from you is not exactly the specifics, because both of you will also be part of this conversation.
Yeah, fair
There will
enough.
be
Yeah.
community hearings,
Right.
you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Does the concept apply to a board of this importance? Or do you want to be treated as status, just like maybe a planning commission?
I think so. I mean, I think the idea is sound, and I would agree with it in theory if you get the number of meetings right.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think it applies, I mean, I'm on the Development Review Board in Randolph. If we miss 3 in a row, unaccounted for, like,
Yeah,
that's,
unexcused.
I
yeah.
think the excuse issue applies, and I don't see that here, and I don't know if you want to include it, but I think, you know, if you've reviewed with the chair that, yeah, I am going through cancer treatments and I'm in the hospital for 3 months, I can't
Got it.
do this, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
So, right,
Got
okay,
it.
I don't need
Nope,
to say
that's-
more.
That's great, and
Okay.
I'm gonna.
I think there's an
Yeah.
excuse component here. It's unannounced or unexcused
Yeah, all that.
absences.
I got it.
And we've used 3 in a row. I don't know if that's the right number for you guys, but that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, so now, we're gonna move down to the part that, describes the duties that you have. And this is where we're not gonna go through, line by line, because it's more descriptive later on, but it's important that I at least reference everything here in yellow. So the one in yellow is what's in the green book, which is the law. And if we said nothing about what municipal electric department commissioners do, the default would be, here are all your powers. And they're pretty expansive. I've broken out this yellow into yellow and blue, just for ease of your glancing over. Because in blue, a lot of this blue has to do with the powers you would have if you ever want to expand your plant, if you ever want to basically grow your territory and buy, get more property. So really, the things you're probably most interested in is making sure that the things in yellow are clear. And what this section does is says that at least you will have everything in statute that the current law gives you. So from time to time, and you may notice as you look at this part of the law was actually changed this year in various ways. When you look at the bottom of some of these sections, it says amended, and if you look at it, it says effective July 1, 2024. So the legislature is quite attentive to what are the powers of municipal electric departments. So my recommendation is that at the very least, in this section, you give yourself the overarching authority of every single thing that you could possibly have the authority to do under the law. Later on, I have a whole section of other things that kind of reiterate and expand other specific things that we want to make sure we know that this board can do. So I'll pause there and just let you take a peek at that.
I don't mean to speak for other people, but I would need more time with this, right?
Yes, so that's not what I'm just kind of looking, I'm gonna guide you through it and
Okay.
ask you a few questions
Yeah,
and remember, this is just getting your knee-jerk reaction
okay.
of some of you so I can get some feedback.
My knee-jerk reaction then would be, this seems really detailed for a statute. Is
So-
it a statute?
It will be law, and this is based on other laws that are the same for other utilities.
Okay.
So, and it's gonna get more detailed, so don't get
Oh my
blown over
God.
by that.
Okay, well, I am.
Yeah.
I think like 2911, effective a negative vote for acquisition of utility property. It's all about price
Oh.
there, and it's like, you
Oh,
gotta
wait,
be freaking kidding me.
Chris.
Don't, not the blue, don't worry about the blue.
Oh, not the blue?
Chris,
Not the
this
blue.
is already law.
This
The
is
yellow
state
We're
law.
looking at this, yeah. This is
Blue and
already
yellow is
law.
all state law.
Including the blue?
Yep,
Okay, well, I'm still pissed. It's okay.
already passed.
All right, fine.
Looking at this,
Yeah,
Fine.
it's already locked.
All right,
looking at this,
fine.
as you
I
look at
can't believe
other,
you're not gonna let us be the legislature for the night.
as you look at other elected officers, you'll see in this section, well, first, can I get a green, yellow, or red on whether you're comfortable with at least saying you have all the powers allowed? Okay, great. The second part of this talks about the terms, and sorry, sometimes it says trustee, but it's commissioner.
That's pretty-
It's still in draft.
I
So
think she's
I
back
liked
one
what you
page.
just said, Brett, earlier, and maybe this is the easy answer here. It says the term of office shall be 3 years.
Okay.
The default is 3 years in staggered terms. Do you instead want to move with what you're recommending is currently in place for the select board, which is
Three for
three for
three,
three,
and then 2 for 1.
2 for 1?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think that's,
But the threes are still staggered, right?
Yes, so
Yeah.
we'll make it staggered. And do you also
Excuse
agree that for the transition,
Maybe.
for the transition
Thank you.
piece, everyone who's in place right now will stay in place past the transition.
I thought you had a July 1st date on there.
That's the transition date, believe it or not. That's what we're aiming for. Now, that may change before the end, but we
Okay.
may be able to get this all through before July 1.
we'll see.
This is the
Legislature.
trustees in office as of July
Chairs.
1st
Yep.
shall continue the office Until their respective term expires, okay.
Right, right. So that would mean that you guys would be unimpacted, but then we would have to decide what happens to fill those other 2 spots. And let me ask first, do you want to agree that it should be that you keep your offices in your current respective terms?
Whoever's elected in March.
Yes, yep, however it is
Yeah.
in March.
Yeah.
Right, so does that mean you guys stay on through July, or does that mean
No.
still election?
Whoever elected in
Whoever
March.
Still-
people
it's still-
decided to go
okay,
through
okay.
election, yeah.
After-
That was my
after-
question,
yep,
yep.
After election day, whoever those
Okay.
3 people are.
Yeah, whoever's
with
elected.
whatever their terms are.
Right.
Stay,
Okay.
and they're sort of grandfathered in
Yep.
past
Yeah,
July.
shouldn't be
Yes.
reelected.
When you guys run in March, is it, are they both for a 3-year term or 1, 2?
No, remainder of a term, one of us will run for a remainder of a term.
Term,
And,
and one will run
We'll
for a
run
3-year.
for a 3.
Okay,
yeah,
all right, cool.
Now,
Yeah,
for the other 2 positions, we can do a few things. You can have, for the first, as a transition period, you could have the select board appoint, well, we could do a few things, actually. Now that we've got the 3 and the 1, we could say that the current officers in place shall be the 3, shall assume the staggered term of 3, 3, and 3. And that the select board appoints the remaining 2 members for 1-year terms
Until the election.
until March.
Right.
Mhm.
yeah. Is that the select board or the trustees?
No.
It's the
Be the
select
select
board.
It would be
board.
select-
Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah.
option 2 would
Total
be you
vote.
guys could self-appoint,
Right,
Mhm.
but that might cause some,
No.
but it
Yeah.
depends.
No, the select.
No, select board.
Yeah,
Yep.
give it to the
So it'd
select
be the
board.
select board, which, and then,
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
All right, so this next one is the recall of elected officers. Again, if this doesn't fly with the other larger group, the 2 bodies, then it won't fly here. But for some, because this isn't currently permitted under general law, a few municipalities have by charter allowed for the recall of their elected officials. So right now, I got an email from a client today, and he said, I don't like my so-and-so board member of my little municipality. Please draft a petition so that we can recall this person. And I have to talk to them about how you can't do that unless you've allowed for it in your charter. So not many towns have this, but this is something that can go to the town and you may consider it. And the question would be, should the recall of elected officers be all elected this is the question they'll decide, and all elected officers, just the select board and the electric board, or any other combination thereof. And so if they choose that they do want to have the recall, do you think that there should be a process by which these board members should also be, you could petition for a recall?
Yeah, I like that provision. I think it's, yeah.
yeah, so how would you do this on the townwide level? Because
Think
I think
about it.
it should be the same, is all I'm saying.
That's,
So-
yeah.
Yeah,
If the
so no
select
matter
board
what,
supports it,
if the bigger
yeah.
group vetoes it and says, you know what, we're not gonna do this funny business.
Exactly, yeah.
Then you won't, but if you do, should it
Then, yeah, I
should it
think,
apply here as well to
yeah,
recall?
that's why I was asking. And if you don't know now, that's fine. I don't want to put you on the spot, but
I'm only 1 of 5.
I know, so that's the
So
issue.
the question is.
Are you having the
if-
same conversation with
If we
this?
had if there was a recall or whatever, that you're asking us to support the select board in this?
No, I'm glad you asked that. What, the specific question I'm asking you now is, in the charter, if we do have a recall provision, should we include, as part of the elected officers, this board as among the types of positions that can be recalled?
Well, I don't think we should have a recall. I think if you're elected, you're elected. So I don't know
Yeah.
how that applies to
Mhm.
us.
Okay.
So maybe, I think,
If
could
the-
we, I think that's kind of where I think we're kind of getting to, which is that if the select board doesn't want that, then certainly
It doesn't
the
count.
electric board should not.
Exactly.
No,
Well,
we
no,
don't have it
no.
if
If the
it's
select,
like- but
if the
if-
select board says no,
Yeah,
then we
no.
don't even,
Doesn't
No,
matter.
it's not
right,
even a thing.
exactly.
Doesn't
And
matter.
if the select board says yes, you still have
Right.
that decision.
Right.
But it would
whether or
be
not you wanna
more,
follow it.
it would be more inclined, I would be
I don't
more
see us
inclined to
doing it.
support doing that,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
so.
I think we would do what the select
Right.
board chooses to do.
Aren't the elections-
And I'm sure they'll
Yeah.
do the right thing when it
Okay.
comes
Right,
to this.
it's every, I mean, at worst, 3 years, right?
So,
Right.
so part of what my report
How
out
much
to
can you
the,
screw up in 3
part,
years?
part of my report out will be that that a body, because I'll be meeting with other entities in the town and the village, or individuals at least, will be to say, they didn't have an opinion and defer to your judgment. And what I'm hearing in this is that's what your position is on this.
Yes.
Yes, that's how I feel about that.
All right.
So, yes.
Good. Okay. So now I'm on the section and it's not complete at all, but it's an important one. It's the powers of the select board. So I've deleted a lot of stuff just because of the number of pages, but I wanted to give you a context for the first few ones about what this section looks like. And so this delineates kind of what are the powers and the duties of the select board. I crossed one out and highlighted another for us to talk about. This is how this section appears for what Linden just did. And what Linden did is they had the select board appoint the commissioners. Not that they're not elected, but they were appointed. So we've already decided you guys are gonna be elected. Good, okay. But if there's a vacancy, the select board will fill the vacancy. Good, okay. Now, in the appointment process in Linden, what basically happened is they appointed this board, and then they also gave the select board the power to hire, remove, and fix the compensation of their general manager. I know we're in an open meeting, and I don't think it was not told to me in total strict confidence. I think it's pretty public. The general manager for Linden thinks that this is problematic and was frustrated at the way that this came together and recommended that I disclose to you that this isn't functionally working because what happened is they have a general manager who basically like 95% of the time is working with their appointed board of commissioners. And then when it comes to everything from, their duties and their contract and other things, has another master that they're serving, and they don't really connect. And so I've crossed this out here and just wanted to disclose that. In this view, yeah, I'll get to you in just a second. In this
Can you
case,
believe I want to comment on this?
in this case, I think because you are elected and because we're going to be giving this board of commissioners a significant amount of power to really do everything to run the department, that the staffing of the department would fall under the purview of the Board of Commissioners. And so my question to you is, do you agree with that? It would be different from Linden, but it is in line with their recommendation, well, the general manager's recommendation for operations.
It's you guys who need to decide this, but I'll just offer the comment that I have worked for and seen situations where the utility is having to report to the select board, and that has not worked.
Yeah.
The reason I thought I was so enamored with you all was that you were a separate board, and I think that structurally you should maintain that authority, in which case your employees should also be under your purview, not under anybody else's. And if you put it under two, you're kind of not only diluting your ability to manage, but you're also confusing your ability to
Yeah.
manage. So that's,
We all voted yes.
Yeah, we're all good. Okay.
oh, I
Yeah.
didn't see the
Yeah,
yeses.
we're all yes. We're all yes.
We all agree,
So-
we're all.
All right, stop.
The next page, I'm gonna skim past the highlighted part in B because we've already discussed what the transition will look like for the initial 3 commissioners, et cetera. The question that I have in this piece is, you're gonna go in 2 directions, so I wanna just keep you confined to the commissioners who would be representing the interests of Ludlow. Should they be residents of the town? We'll get to the part about whether or not there may be appointed or other
Well-
ex officio members
Yeah.
from other towns in a second. So for right now,
Yeah, the
what would
5.
happen is of the 5, there would be, the members that are of Ludlow are residents of Ludlow. I will strongly recommend that you do that, but I'll wait and see what and I can tell you why if you want, but I'm conscious of time. I'll see what you have to say about that. Go ahead.
Okay, so,
Oh, wait, sorry. I'm
Oh.
gonna go to Michael first. And then
Okay,
I'm gonna go to you.
fine.
Try to keep it fast.
And the only reason I'm discussed the residents of the town
Yep,
versus ratepayers, because not all the residents of the town of Ludlow are Ludlow Electric ratepayers.
good point made. Good
exactly,
point.
same point I was gonna make.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the reason why I am making this point and saying I think they should be residents of the town and not necessarily ratepayers, so I'm glad you brought that up, is because you're managing this utility not for the ratepayers, but you're an asset of the municipality. This is something that at the end of the day, the village currently owns. And if something happens with it, it's the asset of the village. It will now be the asset of the town. And while your duty and responsibility is by nature of the entity to the ratepayers, the management of the entity itself is of the town of Ludlow. And so I do think that perhaps one of the things that you might consider as a practice, or you may want to, if you feel strongly, say a certain number should be ratepayers, but I think you should give yourselves the ability to make sure that people who are making decisions on behalf of the town, even if they aren't served by the utility, if they have a skill set and are able to do that, can do that.
Okay, so,
I have a green card.
You're good?
Mhm.
Okay,
so can I ask a quick question
a
about that?
very quick one. I'm
You're
gonna-
so mean.
I am, because we still have to do contract and it's
Yeah,
already
I
57.
understand, I
Okay.
understand, but, so, I've always thought that ratepayers should be able to vote on any ratepayer-related issue, which would extend beyond the town. I don't disagree with the idea of having just town members be on this commission.
Mhm.
I do think they all need to be ratepayers, even if they're residents of the town, but aren't on the board. Why would you? Aren't ratepayers? Why would you want them on the board? So.
Okay,
that's
so
my question.
that's what I just explained, is that I think because, the reason you would do that is because you're not just advocating for your rates, you're managing an asset on behalf of the town. The select board at the municipality, the town owns it, and they're giving a great deal, they're ceding their power and authority and their duties in asset and bonding and debt management, all of that to a group of people. And in a town, how big are you, 2,500?
Right there.
Ish for a town, you may have people with skill sets who might be accountants, or they may be, and they can manage the asset. The value in being up on the board isn't necessarily that you have this particular hat of being a ratepayer. You do have a duty of loyalty to the ratepayers as a board member.
Yeah.
And we will get to the part about ratepayers potentially also having seats from other towns in a second.
Right, but this is all, if we are starting with the concept that everybody is voted in, unless you're appointed because of a vacancy, you're voted in, then the real question is what's the scope of the people that can run?
Right.
period.
Yep.
Yep.
And just that, they also, yes, they have a responsibility to the town, because they're managing a town asset, but they also have a fiduciary responsibility to the ratepayers.
They do,
And
yep.
so
Yeah.
that,
Yep,
they have
and
to come in with
Right.
that
And-
idea.
And
That's
that's,
spelled out.
separate from this question.
yep, and that's in here as part of their duties also, who they
Yeah.
owe a duty of and loyalty to. Okay, so I'm gonna skip the next part because we aren't doing any appointment, we've already decided that. That was C. And then D, I think will be a real quick one. I'm gonna recommend, two things. It sounds like the recall piece may not be part of this. Should the select board have the power for cause, for just cause, like mismanagement or something like that, to remove a commissioner, wait. Yeah, should the select board have the power to remove a commissioner?
It's really up to you guys. No, I would actually agree. If they've been elected, they're independently elected from the
Yeah.
select board, there's no, I mean, there should be no different thing than normal election process. I
But
don't know.
I
But
don't think
even
that's what
if-
we're saying.
Even, I mean, because if, say somebody is mismanaging on this board, there would have to be a reason, you know, say, yeah, but the select board has the authority to be able to get rid of them.
Open meeting, so it's gonna be
Man
for
accused of
everybody
beating
to
his
look.
cellmate
right,
to
yes.
death
I feel like I'm more
takes a plea
comfortable
deal.
with it.
We've followed cases from
So you
police
guys
connected
wouldn't
to
want the
mum.
authority to do that yourselves, because that's the other choice.
Is to make this, give this board the ability to
Yeah.
kick out
To-
one of the
to-
members?
Yeah, to
That's
kick out
hard
one
to
of the
do.
members.
Yeah.
And
It's really hard to
recognize
do.
you're gonna have 5, not 3, so it's not like 2 against 1.
Well, but also in the sense of we're not even having the authority to appoint, so why would we have the authority
To kick anyone
to
off.
kick anyone off? So
Well,
I think the
that's tr-
select board.
That's true with the select
too.
board too. You're elected. Select board
Yeah.
has no authority over that either.
So this may or may not stay until the end.
Okay, this is
but
not
it's-
my-
It is just for the draft.
It's
Yeah.
not my fight, actually. I'm just trying to give you
Give
guys.
Yeah.
us,
Yeah, I feel like I like the recall more than that, but if there was a
Two, I
mechanism,
think the recall would be better.
the recall seems
Oh,
like a
the two.
better mechanism between the two, but, yeah. it's-
Yeah.
There's
And
always a
it's-
third option of
my
taking.
my guess is that anything that's a little bit far of
Shooting,
like
yeah.
being out of the ordinary is gonna likely come out.
Yeah.
If there's any risk that this isn't gonna sail
You and
through.
I are
Right.
so
Yeah, I would agree.
into
Yeah.
it. It's
Okay,
amazing.
so,
That's exactly
eye on
what I was
time,
gonna
we've got
say.
6:45. There are a few more sections I wanna go through. I'm gonna give you, about 2 minutes just to skim, because I don't have anything I wanna discuss with you, but I wanna make sure that if you look at it, there isn't something that jumps out at you. Remember, this isn't your last chance, you can sit with this, we're gonna have time to be able to have public meetings and to change this. But the next section, which is 82, up until 83, this is basically the authority that you have that is restates or expands what law already gives you. So I'm gonna let you skim that, and then when we get to 83, unless someone has something that they absolutely want to discuss in it, put your discuss thing out. If not, in about a minute or so, we'll go on and we'll talk about 83.
I'm gonna use the bathroom while we do that.
Sounds good.
Yep. Okay. You're not on 83 yet? Okay.
We're not discussing like typos and names.
No, not yet.
And please disregard any of my typings on anything I give you, because I'm not a speller. I'm a numbers guy.
This is what, yeah, I mean,
Keep
this
saying that, we
is
got
what I
it.
look at. This is what I look at.
All
We
right.
know the guy you are.
Yeah. So, all right, we're taking a break because Shannon's taking a break, right?
I'm
Nope,
just
they're
reading over
reading.
this over.
Okay.
We still have a quorum,
Yeah.
we're still in a public
Read it
meeting.
over.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. That's a good point. We
Yeah.
are still in public
Yeah.
meeting. Thank you.
I just have a procedural question for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you know this, maybe you don't. Now that the town will be taking this over, is there a process of changing the PUC boundaries to include all of the town of Ludlow?
No. Your, and this, I think I have it in here, your service area will remain the same.
Remain the same, okay. So some, of like, what proportion of Ludlow is GMP versus?
I don't know, I think it's
Brett, do you
like
have an
a
idea?
70-30
What-
split.
What percentage of Ludlow, the
Town.
town, is GMP territory versus ours?
70-30?
Oh, GMP's got way more than we do.
Oh, in Ludlow town, really?
In
Yeah.
Ludlow itself, wow, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
you
fun.
could
Ludlow's
probably
a big,
call South
Ludlow's a
Hill.
big foot,
Yeah.
South Hill.
Interesting.
A lot of
North Hill.
Yeah.
And considering they didn't want to give up those 6 customers on that
100.
line, they're probably not interested in redefining this.
What is-
Yeah.
Not necessarily a discussion for now, but like, what is that like, that like, when we talk about new line connections or new service
Yeah,
in
we got a
Proctor's
territory
Rail,
map.
is that like that's all within territory, that's not adding new service to an area that's currently, like, was a GMP customer or anything
No,
like that?
yeah, no.
I mean, we work pretty close with GMP. If there's a house built just over the line and GMP doesn't have anything anywhere close to it, they're not gonna make somebody build a line a mile if we've got one a quarter of a mile.
Close.
And the,
In change of that, they usually want something in trade.
And similar,
in some-
other similar
in-
situations
yeah,
might happen
something
too.
might happen
Where it's
there.
within our service area that they haven't
Yeah.
a line closer or something.
and I forget where it is, but you are extension into other municipalities. It's,
Yeah, you're
on
allowed to
page
do it,
4.
but,
Municipal plants can do it if someone doesn't have service.
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're gonna go, I had you pause at 83, some of you read ahead. I'm gonna go jump to the end because there's one question I have, and then this is a bigger topic for conversation, so we'll come back to 83, and that will help us move through it. Contributions in lieu of taxes. So, how do you want to handle this? I have proposed that you continue the process of contributing to the town in lieu of taxes.
Mhm.
The default is that you're subject to taxation.
Okay, so help me with the Latin. What's ad valorem mean? Or is that not Latin? It's a typo.
Nope, it's Latin and, received.
Ad valorem.
Oh,
Real
so
estate
basically,
taxes.
it's the equal amount of, it's in equal amount,
Okay,
same value.
okay, all right.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Currently, we pay taxes in lieu, and I have documentation from some state officials back in the 1960s that show that we cannot be taxed by somebody who owns us. So the village can't tax us. So I heard you say a statement that we are subject to tax, but so has that changed?
Yes.
Okay.
By
that's-
state law, it has changed, but I think you may be operating under a grandfathered in. So that's why I want to make sure that as we move out of this, we are clear about, if you don't do it, the default is that you can be taxed. So,
So what's the
Okay.
difference? Why are we bothering with in lieu
Well-
of taxes anymore, if that's the case?
because tax rates, I don't know, tax rates can be, you
Or-
can
yeah.
negotiate it with the town.
And the boards have never, I guess it hasn't been changed in years, what we pay
Yeah.
in taxes, and the boards have never asked the question.
So what do we pay?
So it's more
We pay
predictable.
$26,104.70.
And we've done that
To the
since
village.
1993.
No,
Yeah.
okay, all right, so what do we pay to the town?
The town is a much higher. We pay almost $200,000 a year to the town for property taxes.
Right.
Actual taxes,
Right.
not in lieu of
And
taxes.
they give us the whole thing, the school taxes, the whole, and we pay it quarterly.
So this question is asking us, Sarah,
Oh, sorry, so this question is asking you whether you want to continue the practice that you currently enjoy with the village, which is you pay your tax, you contribute to the town in lieu of paying your taxes, so that the town of
Renegotiate a
Ludlow is
rate,
now
yeah.
not going to send you a tax bill.
okay,
There-
but when we merge, won't that be the town and not the
Exactly.
village?
Right, so this would be like, right now, the town of Ludlow sends you a tax bill, but when you're part of the town, this would say the town doesn't send the department a tax bill anymore, it
Right.
doesn't
And we-
tax it.
and
Right, so
agree
we're
on
working,
paying this
it's gonna
amount.
be the town, same as it is with the village,
Right,
so
so, yes.
it's gonna just change to the town and.
Yep. And potentially, if the board, if the town is like, wants to assess us a different rate, you might have some savings there.
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
more expensive.
From an economic standpoint, you're saying, I mean, in theory, you're sort of offsetting some cost of the electric light department over the entire grant list, which is a substantial grant list, and so
Yeah.
we're getting
Yeah.
cheaper power. If you draw that out, you're getting cheaper
Contribute to the
power
state.
over
Yep.
the entire grant list.
Well,
And-
yes, and you would be
That's-
paying, I mean, the reality is, if they sent you a tax bill or you're paying in lieu of taxes, ultimately, those things would be the same
Would be
if
very,
people
very
are,
close, yeah.
if people are paying attention. Like
And-
But
we
it's more
said,
predictable for us, and it allows us to budget
Right.
better and
So,
safer and
The
more.
process they use for
consistent things.
calculating our value for the lines and poles is very complicated.
So it's a little bit easier.
It would be much easier from an administrative perspective. It's gonna cost us about the same. But there's a.
And
Brett
then you
and I have
adjust that
worked
for
on this.
inflation every year
I think
instead
it
of
number
every
of
means it
polls.
requires that you have to, every 5 years, you have to go through like a reappraisal for your equipment, and so at least you wouldn't have to necessarily do that for your,
Right.
yeah.
So you do that instead of, and then every 5 years, and then you just adjust for inflation in the meantime, and then
Right. Yep,
reappraise on
yep, but that's, it would be much easier
I think
process.
that's,
The taxes in lieu would be,
I think
it'd
that's
be
a good
much more
idea. I think we
predictable and budgetable, yeah.
Okay, so now I'm gonna bring you back to 83, and we'll see if we can do this in 5 minutes. This may be a topic that you're not ready to make a decision on tonight, and I know it's gonna open up larger conversation, and I wanna avoid that and stay focused on what's the recommendation that we're gonna potentially put in front of the board to start considering. So the first in A, it says, "The Board of Commissioners shall administer its responsibilities." And this is where I've played with this a little bit, in responsibility, it's in service and loyalty to the best interests of the town of Ludlow Electric Department. So this is another way of reinforcing that even if you aren't a ratepayer, that your duty, if you are on the board, has to be for the best interests of the department, which obviously has the
Is
best,
the ratepayer.
is the ratepayers. So that's one way that I wanted to make sure that if you did agree and choose that it could be anyone from the town that was on the board, that we emphasize where their duty lies. I can also include "and the ratepayers" there, if that makes you more comfortable. So that's something for you guys to think about.
look, I think, I'm sorry, let me just jump to the elephant in the room.
Wait, nope. I'm
Okay, you
moving
don't
ship.
want me to do
Nope,
that.
Not yet. So the department also, I want to set the groundwork here because in municipal law, you guys are at least all familiar with town managers and how you went from a town administrator to a town manager, and that must have been how long ago? You've had it for a while.
Long
We've had a
time.
town
Really.
manager for
For a long time.
Yeah.
So the town.
Many years.
Okay. If you don't have a town manager, you may not be as familiar with the complications of that have from an administrative perspective. It means that you really do have to go and every action of the entity that is being managed, if you don't have the specific authority to do something under statute, it's the board that has to do the work. And so what's a little bit gray in your, and it's just been past practice, but it's a little bit gray in your current charter, is that some things, you could argue can be done by staff and other things are for the board. what we're being clear about here, and this mirrors state law where it says select boards or the legislative body can do such things. We're saying that you may have your own professional staff, and in B, that you may have your own personnel policies. Select boards can specifically adopt their own personnel policies, and in this case, we're even saying that the commissioners may have their own personnel policies for this department that could be different from the rest of the town. So I just wanted to clarify, like, the reason why we have to say this is because if we didn't, then the default is that you couldn't.
Yeah.
And so that brings us to part C and D, where additionally, the types of things that are outlined here for a general manager to do, if you take out the word general manager and you put in municipal manager or town manager, that's the concept that this mirrors. And that's the idea that we're looking for here. I know that at least I wasn't at your last meeting, but the meeting before, there was there is ongoing conversation about superintendent and department manager and dual reports. And so I don't want to wade too much into this, but it is the elephant in the room, and that this could substantially change what that looks like. And that's why this may be one of those, we're not going to decide tonight, but we want to think about it and understand this better. But I want to describe to you that if you don't outline who has what duties, it becomes, it defaults to the board. And the board has all this responsibility to do some of the day-to-day things. So that's essentially what C and D look at.
Yeah.
And previously, in your old charter, this concept was embodied, and they used to use the word superintendent. And superintendent was like the superintendent of the water, the superintendent of the whatever. So I don't want you to think like general manager as in Chris or superintendent as in Brett, because that concept isn't exactly the same. It's the idea that you would have a person who can sign checks and enter into contracts, with the authorization of the board, but that you yourselves didn't have to go through and take all of those actions. In the same way that when I sent my legal retainer agreement, Brendan he was authorized by his role to sign it, and then we could say, okay, now we know where to put the bill, send the bills. So that's how that's a little bit different than the default.
Can I offer that this is definitely something that I think the board needs to discuss in the concept, actually in executive session in the context of existing personnel discussions.
I have a question.
Yep.
So when the town and village merge
Yeah.
together, what happens to the charter for the electric light department?
Gone.
Okay. All
So,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
and this is the typical, consistent language that you would normally see, but I think we all need to discuss it.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
So when you're discussing this part, I'll just say, I think you do have issues that you may want to continue to discuss and do that in executive session. But the concepts of the charter and how that goes, we should at least have the exploratory questions like, what does this mean?
Mhm.
That part should be, if you have questions, we should do that in open session so that, we're disclosing that you've, tied it apart. How it applies to the department, yes.
I don't have a vote in this. I would just say this is exactly what I would recommend, but that's not where we are at the moment. So I'm going to just defer to the other folks here.
So do you have thoughts about what you see here, the concept?
Well, so that was the question I was kind of going to ask. I feel like I think of this department as being, because it is, but I think of it as being a municipality. I feel like we want to mirror the structure of the municipality as closely as we can, or that's my opinion. So that was kind of what I was going to ask was, does this
Yes.
look a lot like municipal manager? And that's what you
Yeah.
already said.
So if you
it's-
look
yeah.
at when the statute changed to allow municipalities to adopt a form of government that is a municipal, I'm sorry, the manager form of government, the types of things that are in here are, that's what this
Yep.
is pulled from.
Yep.
You know, execute an issue on behalf of the, you know, select board, drafts checks and other negotiable orders, provides payments, et cetera, et cetera. Responsibility to maintain books. It's mostly fiduciary things.
Mhm.
So that's where the law really is, where the rubber meets the road.
Okay, so as far as like, for instance, Brendan being our town manager, yet he doesn't manage us.
Correct.
We're a separate entity.
Exactly.
Which in turn is kind of, I think, where we're at in Ludlow Electric is we are different entities, the outside and the office
Yep.
being different entities. So how does that kind of?
Yeah, because they're, in the law, you are two different entities, because you're two different operational, you do two different types of things, but overall, you are the municipality, not the municipality, you are the department, and your ability to bond and buy insurance and enter into contracts and things like that is as the department, and that's what this is going at. If you want to, yeah, so those are the kinds of things I want to hear from you, because I can also continue to think through, like, what would be a way where you wouldn't have to go through either a charter change to empower somebody to do some of these duties, or potentially,
A town charter change or electric light?
this will all be.
It's all the same.
This will
It's gonna
all be
all
town.
be the same.
Yep,
Okay.
this will all be the same.
Okay.
Yep,
The
it'll
electric,
all
the
be
current
town.
electric department charter is part of the village charter.
Currently, yep,
Yes.
and the village charter will go away.
The village
And the
charters.
electric
And
light charter
and it
will
will
go
be,
away.
yep,
Mhm.
exactly.
Okay, all
And that
right.
will now all be part of the bigger piece.
And I'm sorry, can you explain, is there any difference right now in this concept as to how the village, the electric department is considered in the context of the village than this? Like, are they different, or are they the same at the moment, or are they close?
So we are pretty much mirroring from a governance perspective, because you are very empowered by the village to
Yeah.
be the department.
Yeah.
You know, to make the decisions. You don't really have to account to the village trustees. So that will stay the same. Overall, or this provision?
I'm really thinking in the context of this provision, because this has been a confusing point all along.
Yep. So if you look at this is the existing provisions of
Okay.
the Ludlow Charter.
Yep,
I've pulled out of the Ludlow Charter only the ones that relate to the electric department. They call it the electric power system. So if you want to chew on this and look here at, it's under 95, management of the electric power plant.
yeah.
That's the section that
Right.
would describe what happens here.
And it uses the term superintendent for
It
the,
only uses it in one place, and it says that it says what the commissioners do. They have the authority to control, manage, and operate.
Mhm.
And this is where I'm saying, not, this, in your charter, you have not really, you've retained a lot of the day-to-day stuff that would normally be given over, and I think maybe in functionality between both roles, just by past practice, it's been done by your staff, but it should be clean, and you should decide that the roles that these two are currently playing should be played by people and not you. In this, it says what the commissioners shall do, and then at the end, it says, said board may, in its discretion, appoint a superintendent of the department, fix their compensation, and remove them at pleasure. So that's the only thing. It does not say what that person should do.
right.
And that's what I'm What I'm saying is that if you don't say what the person should do nowadays, then the default is you don't have the town manager form of government. You have what, towns use as town administrator,
Yeah.
which is a staff person that the, a select board or whatever would hire to administer their work, but really doesn't have any power to do anything without the board acting at every moment. So that, this does make more clear that this is an oversight board and that the management of the department should be by professional staff and accountable to at least someone titled a general manager, or you title it something else. But it does resemble and mirror the
Municipal structure.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So I'm hearing hesitation, and I don't think anyone's ready to opine. I kind of heard that you like this,
Yep.
but I don't know that I'm gonna get any consensus on whether this is good, if it's not, if you wanna think about it some more.
Honestly,
Wait 1 second, let me just get a read here.
I was gonna try and spare these people, but
Yeah.
okay, go
Let me
ahead.
get a read.
I have a question, not like, how is the water department and the electric light department different? Is it because the water department in our town doesn't have a charter?
Actually, the water department, so when you say they don't have a charter, there is only one charter.
Okay,
And there are provisions that direct how the water, how
okay.
water operations and electric and others
And wastewater.
are, and wastewater are in it.
It was
So,
working before.
in your current charter, I do believe,
Yep.
and I can take a quick look, I do believe there are, you have in the village charter, you have provisions for fire protection, you have police officers, you have Board of Health, you have water supply system, electric power system, and sewers, and streets, culverts, pipes, and drains.
Okay.
In the new charter, most of that is gonna go away because the current operation of the town and the way your current practice doesn't deviate from what the default is under state law. And one of the questions we'll have for the select board and for the water commissioners too is there anything in your operation and what you do and how you oversee water or wastewater that you feel needs to be set apart and written into the town's charter? And that's kind of what we're doing here, is like, what is different and more and special about here than what is the default in state law?
So what if you have a personnel policy manual that states different than that
For which one?
for placement of operations?
Of operations? You can do that. Okay, so if you had an organizational structure that gives authority, like higher fire authority, because I don't think that's one of the things here.
Yeah, it was
This is concerned
There it
with,
is, but not.
Yeah,
not-
in here it is.
this is concerned with basically management of the money and things you can go to jail for. I mean, to be honest.
Right.
Yes.
So, basically, if it was like to our discretion or to our handbook or what have you, if we were to have, say, the general manager,
Yep.
but we still have the duties of one person doing this, one person doing that, because they are so separate. You know, say superintendent and general manager. Yes, general manager has the ability to hire fire checks, such and
Yep.
such. But still keep a happy medium and basis of, different duties, different.
Yep, so we could probably, so there's basically a legal concept where unless you specify that something can happen, or you specify that it can't happen, it can happen. So I'm thinking through this, if you didn't say anything at all, to clearly say what specific authority the general manager has, you could just let it be silent, and from time to time, as the commissioners of the board wish, you could create, a special advisor or a czar or a paid position, with whatever title it may be. But what it couldn't do is it couldn't do the things that you've expressly said that this other position can do. So here, if the general manager is responsible for hiring and firing, but you had another position that also reported to the board, it doesn't say here that you can't have someone that also reports to the board or that oversees certain parts of the operation. So that's the answer.
Clear as mud. I mean, the reality is that this is something we're struggling with right now. We're gonna need to talk about it in, I think, executive session. I don't think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, board members, you guys can decide. I mean, the model that you have expressed here for the municipal thing is exactly what I would recommend, but that's different than where we are, and we need to talk about it. And I don't wanna force anybody's hand here at the moment, at all.
So why don't I leave you, why don't we leave it here and have you think about language that, or concepts. You don't have to think about the legal language, but if there are things that, what would be helpful is like, I would still like to be able to do this. Or I would still like the board to be able to be organized this way. Then I can, and you can do this without, you can just email me or give me a call, and then I can begin working language. Because this I'm doing in service to for the village and the town. And I can present various options, and you guys can weigh in at your subsequent meetings. You can convey your message to the deciders of the village and the town. But if you want to keep thinking about this and then give me feedback, in the next week or two, because I think we may try to do a joint meeting mid-December.
Beginning of December, I just
Yep.
told them, try to shoot for it, so we can
Yep.
get it.
I'm sorry, when you say joint meeting,
Yeah.
joint meeting
Oh,
of
the
Village
village.
and
village and
select board.
town?
Yep, the village and
okay,
town.
great.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it here because of time, and
I just-
then,
One more quick
Yes.
thing, not on that,
Yeah.
completely different subject. For the board members, what would the idea of a non-voting advisory board member
thank you.
that is a ratepayer outside the town of Ludlow?
I can't believe I had a note on there too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that is one thing I do want to know. Do you want
I think you should.
voting, do you want
Board.
representation from outside of your other communities? Are they voting or non-voting? And how many?
On the board itself?
On the board itself.
Yep,
It could be an advisory role, it could be a voting
Yes.
role.
ex officio.
Yeah. Somebody outside of like Plymouth, because we serve Plymouth, we
Right.
serve Proctorsville.
Oh,
How are
Awesome.
they appointed, how are they picked?
So, yeah,
Yeah.
so
How are
the,
they?
yep, the options
It
are,
would have to be appointed by, I think it would be,
Sorry,
By
I'm
their
gonna
local.
interrupt, but I actually have to go. There's
Okay.
It's somewhere.
I'm sorry we're so late.
No,
but
it's
thank
fine.
you.
Yeah.
I didn't know, but yeah, I have, I gotta run out. Can you just stop recording?
Stop the recording.
Yes, that's all you gotta do.
Yep.
And if you remember, the audio mixer on the side, that red, the fader, you can just
Yeah.
fade it all the way down.
Yep.
And then I'll come in the morning and get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Patrick.
Thank you,
Thank
have a
you.
good
See you guys.
night, thank you for coming.
yeah.
I was taught yesterday how to run this
Excellent.
equipment.
And that's just
so now we
something-
know.
Wonderful.
So we don't need to throw a chair at it, is what, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's, do you want, and I think the answer is yes. Now, how many?
Every town that has,
Ludlow Electric should have a
That has service.
Yeah,
representative.
in which case you are increasing the board, the
The
number
board's
considerably, right?
But would that
Yeah.
be, would they be considered a board member, or would they be considered just more of a, like,
So
consulting?
then you can have You can have non-voting
either
ex
way.
officio
Voting or
members.
non-voting.
You're
Yeah.
looking at ex officio, non-voting
Yeah.
Yep.
member
Yeah, because otherwise.
appointed by
you
the
could-
legislative body
You
of
have a
any other
voice.
town within our
Yeah.
service
Yeah.
area.
That's a great
That's-
idea.
It
Yeah.
is, and
The
if
way
you,
that I was
because if you
Yeah.
added the five, the other places, they would
Right.
outnumber you all.
Right,
So
right.
You can't.
Well, you can have 5, and you're technically, you only got 2 towns, you got Plymouth and Proctorsville.
Plymouth and Proctor.
Yeah, okay.
Plymouth
take-
Plymouth and Proctorsville.
So you just take one
Didn't you
from
have
each, that would
someone
put you at 7.
Cavendish?
Yeah, I think making
That's-
them ex
that's-
officio.
Nothing
Yeah.
in Mount Holly?
We don't have any, I mean, we do serve Mount Holly, but we don't have any ratepayers in Mount Holly.
Okay, so
That's-
any,
That's all chemo, yeah.
Okay.
With ratepayers. Any municipality that has ratepayers.
yep, may
The
appoint,
legislative body may appoint
Appoint
an
someone.
ex officio, a member who shall serve as an ex officio non-voting member.
That's a great
That's
idea.
lovely. I think
Yes.
that's
Perfect.
great.
Yeah.
and are they, do they have to be a ratepayer? I think yes.
I
From
think
among
yes.
ratepayers.
I think
They
Yeah,
have
yes.
to
from
be.
among
Yeah,
ratepayers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I
like,
think
what's
so.
the whole
Yeah.
purpose?
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Is-
That's a
Yeah,
great idea.
absolutely.
Among said
Thank
ratepayers.
my-
Absolutely.
Thank you, because I would have been driving home and said, damn it, that
Yeah.
was the big one.
Yep.
Yes, no, I think that's,
It's very
Yeah, I
good.
think that's a great provision to put in
Yeah.
there.
Okay,
And so right now, we're saying with that. we
Imagine how
technically
long
have
our
service
meetings are gonna be then.
In Mount Holly,
That
but we
many
don't have
people talking?
ratepayers. We have ratepayers in
hopefully we
just
won't have these
Cavendish.
big
I
decisions.
know, I
tonight. Yeah.
know, I know.
Logan will summarize, he solved our problem.
That's fine.
He will now summarize what the provision is going to be.
Yeah, just that we will have from
Okay.
municipalities
Well,
within
here's your
our service area that have ratepayers, the legislative body shall appoint an ex officio non-voting member. One from each municipality.
You've used those before.
And
So
shall
the
we
mo,
use-
so
shall
we're
we use
thinking
them
it would be
again?
7. It would
Yeah.
probably bring it
Yep.
up to 7.
Right.
Okay.
Bring it up to 7.
All right.
Yeah.
Voting, non-voting.
Ex officio non-voting.
Non-voting.
Yeah. And must be a ratepayer.
So right now, that would mean that we would have another person, another non-voting member from Cavendish and Plymouth.
Yeah.
Theoretically, if we ever got ratepayers in Mount Holly, then Mount Holly could also add somebody.
Right.
And the only place we have power up there is up at the top of the mountain, and it's owned by Okemo,
So
so,
there's nobody.
yeah.
Right.
So if you're going into executive session, I'm not with you for all of them, or whatever you're doing, I'm only here for the contract piece.
Yeah, and truthfully, I would ask that Michael be allowed in for the IBEW contract discussion, and then he will go, if that's okay.
So actually, if you want to do that one first, then he and I can.
Yep,
use-
yep, we can do that.
Or we could torture you by doing it
I know.
last.
Actually,
Or we
gotta
can
make
sit
a motion.
We're gonna
outside
make the
and
motion,
rest.
we're gonna stay on until we make
Yeah.
the motion. So if that's where we are, I mean.
I think it is, yep.
I'll move that we go into executive session, first for the purposes of meter discussions and then for personnel.
No.
No, IB,
IBEW.
Oh, IBEW,
yeah, first, so that they can,
first.
yep.
Yeah, sorry. First for the purposes of personnel discussions and then for the meter.
Okay.
We don't need to find that.
Let me just double check. I'm thinking that if we are doing, like, I don't really know.
What the language would be for
I
that.
don't know what they-
For
No, the
personnel,
AMI meter's just a discussion.
contract?
It's,
No, it's
no,
not a
just a
contract,
discussion.
Just discussion about
Discussion.
where we're at, because
Yeah.
we're supposed to be already started.
So we're
on
gonna
it, and we
start with
haven't
the
been able to
IB.
Get it, so.
Okay,
IBE.
so you may not, if you can't find a reason to go into executive session, can it fit under anything?
well, AMI is it's a contractual,
Is it that's what
it's a
I'm wondering, is it a
contractual
contract?
issue ultimately,
Okay.
yes.
Yep.
So why don't you, will
Excuse
you
me.
revise your motion
Yeah,
and move to make a finding?
yeah. Well, yeah, that's I thought that was a secondary motion.
That's the first one.
Oh.
The first one is to make the finding.
We have to
once
make a
you-
finding,
once you
yeah,
found it,
and then
we
we've
can
made
go
that
in.
finding, yeah.
Yep, and so why don't you make a finding that premature public knowledge of 2 contracts
Yep,
would
Would-
substantially disadvantage the body, and then you vote on that.
I make that motion. This is for you, Wesley.
Thanks, but I can't second it,
Well,
so.
just
Well,
as the
then I'll
minute-
second it if
as the
it's
minute
Oh, for the
writer.
minute, oh, the
Okay.
minute writer,
Yeah.
You're
thank you.
gonna have to remember
Thanks-
this language.
Thanks for reminding
Because
me.
that's the motion that I
Right.
just
Yep.
made.
Right.
And then the next
Yeah.
one can be moved to go into executive session for contract matters and for.
Well, we gotta vote on this
personnel.
one first.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so I know you moved it. Who seconded?
I did.
Thank
She did,
you.
Yep.
And then I will move that we go into executive session for a contract matter.
Jean,
Second.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. We will now,
Same
we will
moved
now
and
go into
seconded,
executive
same
session.
pieces. Okay.
Making
So
it easy.
Pause are.
I do have to say, it sounded like both of those were the.
We're back into open session at 7:40 PM.
Testing? No, it's not required.
Well, you'll have the recording from this too,
Yeah, there you go. It should.
theoretically.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make a motion that we ratify the IBW contract.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I will make a motion that we allow Shannon and, well, the chairperson and the general manager to sign the contract.
I'll second.
The secondary.
And then
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
And now for the secondary contract.
The side.
And move that we allow the general manager and the chairperson to sign the side letter.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion moves.
And then you can go back.
Cool.
into-
Yeah.
And then, I will move that we go back into executive session
Why
for.
Well, you have to sign first, right? Or,
don't you
yeah.
vote on the 3.2% for the other than the contract?
Yeah, well, you're out.
Yeah,
Do
while
you-
you're at
do
it.
you
Well, I think we
wanna
could just do that in
now,
our
or-
budget.
It would
It's-
make it much
it's-
easier for me.
It-
Oh, okay.
Okay, even if it's in the budget? Yeah, well, because we,
Well, no, you still gotta
actually,
approve it.
no,
Yeah,
you-
the board's
yes,
gotta
we do
approve
need
it.
to do that because we're actually paying that out of 2024, the current year.
Board's gotta
Not, it's
approve
not part of the
All right, so it needs
2025
to be
budget.
Oh, the 3.2.
Yes,
3.2,
thank you.
Good.
For the other employees.
I will move that we give a 3.2% raise to non-unionized employees.
Retroactive.
Just let me ask a question.
Yeah.
We have a new employee.
Yes.
so
She
with
would
that,
not be eligible.
She's not.
Do we need
eligible
to
for that.
specify that or no?
No, you don't
Okay.
need to.
All
She got,
right.
she got hired at the salary she
And
got hired at.
retroactive, I heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going
Yeah.
back to January 1st for
Yeah.
everybody.
I'll second that
Thank you.
motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Cool.
You paying Tom that raise too?
No,
No.
no, that would not be, that's not, he's not.
Non-unionized current employees.
You are a funny boy.
With
Okay,
All right.
So now we will,
You don't need to do the AMI one. I had a question
We'll
for
get
you, so
signed.
if you walked out, I was.
Yeah.
The
thank
AMI
you.
is, yeah, I'll let you guys.
Yeah, I think
Turn
AMI,
this off.
It's just
I-
a discussion.
I'm feeling like we should just
Table it.
table that one for
I
now.
think that's
All right.
lovely.
Are you signing one of these? So I won't sign the other, I'll wait for yours. Okay, we'll sign it and then give it to Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
so we are going back into move that we go back into executive session for a personnel issue.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish you all some snow on Friday.
7:45.
But
Yeah,
you're
happy
Tom.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Not ready
You're
for
not
it.
ready?
Oh, yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving. I heard Gene second that motion.
I
Oh,
did.
geez, what did I
second.
do? Wait, I signed the wrong page.
7:45. Oh, did you really?
That's right. grab
Do you
another
want, do you
one.
want
Grab
to
bread.
start with another one? Yeah, there you go. Let's do that one.